Behold the voice of God.
For those of you who don't know me officially, my name is Amanda Waller.
And I am Aaron Mosh, host of Task Force X.
What, we some kind of suicide squad?
Well, yeah, that and
JLMay.
Task Force X is a podcast that tells the stories of John Ossinger's Suicide Squad and Paul Kupperberg's Checkmate from the late 80s, early 90s.
I want to build a team of some bad people who can do some good.
And that's what Suicide Squad is. While Checkmate is a team of good people doing some good. My mission here is to chronicle each and every title in all the books that Suicide Squad and Checkmate appeared in during that era.
We're the U.S. government. You're going to start a blog and expose us?
Well, a blog and a headcast, Amanda.
Those scumbags are trying to screw me.
Not at all, Amanda. Just trying to help everyone else discover the joy of the Suicide Squad and Checkmate. Anywho, hope you guys have as much fun with these comics as I did when I first read them. Oh, so many years ago.
Mother...
That's enough of that, Amanda. Let's go and start the show.
I didn't believe the stories.
Nobody does. Remember, I'm watching. I see everything.
And welcome back to Task Force X, where I look at all the Suicide Squad and Checkmate goodness. Thank you for coming back with me. I know it's been a while. I was here last month, but before that I was gone for about 6 months due to personal issues. I talk a little bit about that over on It Speaks, episode 51. But this month, again, we did have a Suicide Squad and Checkmate issue last month, but this month we're taking a hold on that again because, once again, it is May, and that means it is time for JLMay. This month, I'm going to be joining in by looking at Villains United 1 through 6. It was a mini-series that tied in with the Infinite Crisis, but I am not doing this alone. Again, I'm covering 6 issues in this one episode, so I need someone to help me out. Everyone else is busy, so Derek W.C. decided to help me out. Hey, Derek.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, Aaron?
All right, this is Derek W.C. from the Fanholes Podcast Network. Great podcast network, great guys. I love their shows, and I'm glad that Derek's able to join me for this.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I like Villains United. It's cool.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good series. I'll go ahead and I'll give you guys a brief synopsis of all 6 issues, and then me and Derek will talk about it. And then when we're done, Derek can go ahead and pimp his stuff and let you know where to find him at. So this was Villains United. Like I said, it was a 6-issue miniseries. The first issue had a cover date of July 2005. The on-sale date was May 4th of 2005. So I guess it kind of worked out. The first issue of this was during JLMay. The cover price was $250. The title was "An Empires in Their Purpose." It was the entire thing was written by Gail Simone. The penciler was Dale Eaglesham. Inker was Wade P. Vaughn Graubedger. Letter was Jared K. Fletcher. Colorist was Snow Cone. Editor Stephen Wacker. And the cover was done by Jeff G. Jones. And as I read through the rest of these, the only thing we say are the ones that are different. Because again, Gail did the whole thing, and I think the same penciler did it all. So anything that was changed, I'll read off. Otherwise, everything else same as the first issue. So Villains United 2 came out in August of 2005. The on-sale date was June 2nd, again of 2005. The letter for this issue was Patrick Brazil. The title of this one was called A Fire in the Steeps. The third issue was September of 2005, but it was on sale July 7th of 2005. The title of this one was called Privilege to Spill Our Blood. The fourth issue, again, was cover date October of 2005. On sale date was August 10th, 2005. The title was A Weapon to Unify. The fifth issue was November 2005, but it was on sale September 8th, 2005. This one had a different letter. This was Nick J. Neapolitan, something like that. Again, I'm terrible at names.
It's Napoleano or Napolitano. Yeah.
There you go. That sounds better.
Yeah. I think the third issue, the penciler did change because I think it's Dale Eaglesham for all of the issues except for issue 3 because that's Val Semix. So.
Okay, I must have missed that when I was doing my notes. So that's why I got someone here to help back me up because I messed things up. The sixth issue was December of 2005. Covered or on sale was October 12th of 2005. The title of this was At the End of All Things. The letter was, again, Patrick Brazua. And these were reprinted in the Villains United trade paperback from 2006, the Infinite Crisis Omnibus hardcover 2012, and the Secret Six Villains United trade paperback 2015. And then the first couple had a couple different covers, alternate covers. So let's go for the synopsis. The first issue, Lex Luthor's Society is recruiting various villains for its next big scheme. A list of villains down to the Z-listers. They are using what the JLA did to Dr. Light, as revealed during the Identity Crisis, for the recruitment drive. That and the threat of force. Of the villain's approach, Catman is one of the few to turn them down, which infuriates Dr. Psycho. Taj Al Ghul and Psycho report back to the society of their failure, while most of the team is in favor of killing Catman off. Luthor suggests not touching it at all. Meanwhile, on Amazon, the Secret Six, consisting of Deadshot, Scandal, Cheshire, Ragdoll, and Fiddler, along with a Parademon, are taking out a hive operation on the orders of someone named Mockingbird. Due to the Fiddler's powers not working, 2 hive agents almost get away. At the end of the mission, Deadshot kills the Fiddler, and again, see last year's JLMay segment of Task Force X for more on this development. Yes, we're going back to the past. To keep their number at 6, Floyd and Scandal attempt to recruit Catman to their team. Blake reveals that after he turned the society down, Deathstroke visited his home and killed his pride of lions. This ensures that he joins the 6. The team returns to their headquarters, the House of Secrets, as they reveal to Catman that it's the 6 of them versus about 200 of the society. Mockingbird reveals that he plans on using this team of misfits and losers and transforming them into a powerful team. To ensure their cooperation, Mockingbird has something on each member of the team. Plus, he offers them each a continent when they're done. Issue 2 opens with Catman and Deadshot squaring off in the kitchen in the middle of the night. After they come to terms, the 2 men sit and have breakfast as they talk about the mysterious benefactor and Catman's recent past, while Cheshire watches from nearby. Then Mockingbird sends the team to Gotham City on a mission to liberate, again in quotes, a Russian freighter full of Thangarian weapons. As the team discusses the mission, we find out that the calculator has a bug aboard their ship and is listening in. The team heads in while a summer storm rages around them. The team boards the ship to find it empty, realizing they've been set up as Weather Wizard announces himself along with his team of villains. Catman holds the group off as the 6 escape. Well, try to escape before the Wizard stops them, cold. Blake comes to with the crime doctor over him, injecting him with chemicals and questioning him about who Mockingbird is. Which leads into issue 3. We continue with the crime doctor torturing our team. He's doing it an hour at a time. Not so much for information, but because he really enjoys it. Out of the group, the Parademon seems to be enjoying the torture, seeing how he's from Apocalypse. Black Adam is in the process of telling Luthor to stop torturing the 6 when Luthor shows Adam a biological weapon that they found in South America that the 6 left. He also tells Adam that they found another one near Kadaki, which is Adam's home. This information seems to pull Adam over to Luthor's side. As the team continues to be tortured, we find out a bit more what Mockingbird has on them and also learn who Ragdoll is. Scandal is returned to the team, and Captain Nazi insinuating that she helped them.
As the crime doctor begins to work on Catman, Blake enrages the doctor so much that he goes to shock Catman. And he accidentally hits the collar, shorting out the locks, allowing Catman to go free. Catman then takes out Captain Nazi and frees his friends, returning their gear to them. The 6 take out the guards, and they send a message to the society by killing the hyena and making their escape. The hyena is one of Firestorm's villains. I love Firestorm. Anyways, issue 4, at Enclave M, referred to as Bell Rev's bad brother, which I'll talk about, the new Jack from the Royal Flush Gang is threatening the Warden. He tells him to let him out and that someday there will be a call to open the gates for everyone, and he'd better listen or they'll kill his wife and daughter. Meanwhile, the Secret 6 is about 60 miles from the Bolivian border, looking to break into a secret society's base, which Ragdoll does via the sewer system. The 6 take out the Hive agents and learn of the society's plans, something called Benediction Scenario. The society plans on mind-wiping the JLA and all of the superheroes. As Black Adam and the new Royal Flush Gang show up to stop them, the 6 find and release the society's power source for this facility. Firestorm, the nuclear man, who is not in a good mood being locked up. Afterwards, back at the House of Secrets, Jade and Blake have some pillow talk as he relates to her how he went from zero to hero. Well, not a hero, but you know. Leading up to him returning to his home to find Deathstroke leaving after killing his pride of lions. Meanwhile, Jade reveals her own secret, that she slept with Blake just so she could have his child. A final note for this issue, To see what happened and happens to Firestorm, make sure you read Firestorm 17 and Firestorm 18, which are both tie-ins to the crossover. And also check out the Fire and Water's JLMay's 2020 episode, which was episode 244 of their show. Great times.
Issue 5 starts with the Six attacking LexCorp's subsidiary, looking for the identity of their mysterious benefactor, Mockingbird. Meanwhile, Luthor is sending the Fearsome Five to capture a mysterious person, one of two. After he finishes that task, Luthor has to deal with Vandal Savage, who is quitting Luthor's society. Meanwhile, out in Space Sector 1729, Sinestro is retrieving Lady Quark, which is the second of Luthor's mysterious duo. Back at the House of Secrets, Catman is telling Cheshire that he's willing to kill the baby and her rather than having a kid with her. The Society, except for Lex, are all in favor of killing the Six when they are interrupted by the Fearsome Five bringing in their prisoner, the first mysterious guest, Pariah. Pariah tells Luthor that he isn't the only apex predator and that he won't survive the other guys coming. Back with the Six, who are meeting with Mockingbird, Catman stands with an offer. The Six take on the Society, they win, and whoever wants can walk away. If they die, Mockingbird leaves their family alone and recruits a new Six. Afterward, while Deadshot's visiting Scandal, we learn that her father is really Vandal Savage. Also, Catman shows up to bash Floyd's head into Scandal's desk, telling him that he knows that Deadshot was the one that actually killed off his pride due to the cigarettes that Floyd smokes. The fight is interrupted as the Society attacks, and Cheshire is revealed to be a traitor to the group. Issue 6. As the Society gathers out front, inside the House of Secrets, our team is turning against one another, as they tend to do, and Scandal learns that Mockingbird has abandoned them. Back at the Society headquarters, Luthor is learning that someone has hijacked his satellites. He doesn't know the brand left behind, but we, especially here on Task Force X, know that it is Oracle. As the calculator tries to regain his satellites, Luthor continues to torture Pariah for information. Pariah tells Luthor that there are other worlds and another Luthor, which Luthor acknowledges and admits that it's him. And our Luthor is the real Mockingbird. Upon this reveal, Luthor shoots Pariah. Back in the House of Secrets, Deadshot shoots Cheshire, saying that they don't need traitors in the Society. Then both teams clash as the battle ensues. Elsewhere, the real Luthor, a.k.a. Mockingbird, is going over his plans as he dons his battle suit and prepares to take the battle to the other Luthor. The battle continues at the house where Paradigm reveals that he's triggered his bunch of mother boxes to self-destruct, exploding apart the House of Secrets. Deadshot and Deathstroke have a shootout where Deadshot winds up on his back full of those holes. Vandal Savage confronts the second Luthor and forces him to have his Society break off their attack and retreat. Luthor tells Black Adam to bring Cheshire with them if she's still breathing. The Parademon dies as Mockingbird, a.k.a. the real Luthor, informs his team that their family is safe. He was lying about the implants. After all, he's a liar, not a child killer. The story ends with Blake confronting Green Arrow about what they did and warning him about the Society and their plans. Thomas Blake and Floyd Lawton walk off in the sunset, discussing the future of the Secret Six. And that is Villains United, which leads into a special and eventually a Secret Six series, which, again, I may talk about that over here on Task Force X at some point in the future. But let's go ahead and take a look at the covers first, I guess, like we normally do. The first issue of Villains United, it shows Deathstroke front and center. Behind him, we have Dr. Psycho, the Calculator, Lex Luthor, Talia al Ghul, and Black Adam floating above them. They're on looks like a ledge or something. Deathstroke has some blood on his sword, and they're both looking down at us. Deathstroke looks like he's looking more straight ahead along with Black Adam.
So can I ask a question? When this came out,
yes.
Did you think, because I remember having the thought like that, I thought the series was going to be about the characters on the cover. Like, I didn't realize that it was going to be about the Six, and I got into it, and I think it's probably maybe my favorite of the 4 Countdown to Infinite Crisis miniseries. But I do remember having that thought at the time, thinking, oh, I thought this was going to be about, Luthor and Talia and Black Adam and Dr. Psycho and, Deathstroke and them as a quote-unquote organization or team or whatever. And
Right.
I remember kind of being surprised where I was like, oh, wait, they're the antagonists and everything. So I thought that was interesting because I'm thinking back to like my initial reactions to when it came out.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember. I think I probably read the previews or something that showed that it was going to be the Secret Six. And if I'm trying to remember, it's been a few years back, and I remember it's not that great. But but no, you do have a good point that this is very, very odd, I guess, that for the cover of our first issue, we don't have our heroes, but we have the bad guys that they're facing instead of the heroes on the cover. Yeah, usually you get the first issue, you're going to have your heroes or your protagonists in this case on the cover front and center instead of the villains. So
like I have there's like a vertical promo poster that uses this cover, the one from Jeff Jones and everything. And then I did get Gail Simone to sign it at WonderCon because
very nice.
Something I liked that I figured she could sign. So I enjoyed this miniseries for the most part, but I do think it's interesting that, I guess, sticking Deathstroke front and center on the cover, like this was probably not that Deathstroke wasn't popular in the New Teen Titans because he totally was, but I think this probably they were trying to play off of he was a big part of at least one moment in Identity Crisis, and I think they were trying to carry that push over to this miniseries too, like to get people who think Deathstroke was cool to check it out.
Yeah, more than likely, like you said, yeah. Up till this point, he was mainly a Teen Titans villain. Yeah, up to this point, he was a Teen Titans villain. So yeah, this is where they're trying to branch him out a little bit. He was in Identity Crisis before this. But yeah, I just think, like you were saying, they were trying to branch him out a little bit more. And in a few years, he's going to show up in the Arrow TV series when they start that.
Yeah,
he's a big player in that.
Crisis kind of set up the whole rivalry between him and Green Arrow, and then that went on for a little while too.
So overall, what do you think about this cover? You said that one of your favorites?
It's a good cover. I mean, I don't know that it's like something that I would say is like one of my favorites of all time or anything, but I mean it's very nice looking. Like all the characters are distinct and exactly who they are, so I mean right. I think it gets the job done. I think it's good. I think it was a good call to go with Deathstroke as the primary figure on the cover, probably just due to his popularity. But I mean, again, it is kind of it's a fun group shot, basically.
Very much so. And also he's a little more flamboyant, if you will, out of this group.
That's true. I mean, I guess you could argue you've got a cover with like three guys who are wearing suits, right? Like, so the most interesting probably would be either Black Adam or Deathstroke, I guess. So I guess it makes sense that you would stick him up to the forefront, whether he was popular or not, just from the virtue of him not being in a suit and tie, right?
Right. Well, that the blood on his sword kind of helps bring him a little more forward. And I again, looking at this with 20/20 eyes, you notice Talia Ghul is standing in the back, turned with her back to us, turned slightly so we get a good profile of her behind and her front. And I mean, again, not complaining, but yeah, looking at, with modern eyes at this cover, a lot of people complain about the way that she's posed.
Well, I mean, this is 2005, and people are still complaining about that with, say, like the Avengers movie poster, which is 2012? I don't even remember now, but
something like that.
So I'm sure. To me, it's like Talia's always been a glamorous character. I'd take more issue with the fact that in the story, it seems like she's Lex Luthor or Alexander Luthor, spoilers, his secretary almost. Like, it's like, Talia, go get coffee. Talia, tell me who the new recruits are. Talia, go get me a piece of cake or whatever he does in that miniseries. And like that, I could see being kind of like, well, hey, like, she is the daughter of the demon, like, but it seems like she's like Lex Luthor's errand boy in this, which is kind of, I appreciate that they're doing something that's outside of the norm for, I guess, DC villains in this context. That they're essentially setting up like a supervillain union. They're not making a team. They're just kind of like, look, we need insurance because of the mind wipe stuff that happened in Identity Crisis, and that galvanized everybody to kind of basically have everybody's back, and it's like, that's, it's an interesting concept. I think it's one of those things where sometimes the the event, it's like killing Peter Parker in Amazing Spider-Man 700 made a lot of people mad. But I think the Superior Spider-Man series that followed was kind of interesting, and I liked reading it. So I kind of apply that same logic to this. Like, I was not necessarily really super thrilled with what happened in Identity Crisis, but playing off of the events in that, like, this makes for an interesting dynamic in the context of what occurred in that miniseries. And I will say I actually did enjoy reading Villains United.
Yeah, it took, like you said, Identity Crisis. Well, it wasn't a bad series per se. There was some problematic moments about it. And this Villains United kind of takes that and, well, it's kind of like with Batgirl. She was crippled in The Killing Joke. And then, without giving too much away for the Task Force X podcast, John Ostrander and Kim Yell took that maiming of Batgirl and turned it into something really cool. Yeah, which we're going to find out in the future. Even
though you might not like the stinky, yucky rubber bouncing ball that you get tossed, like, they still kind of, in all those cases, I think they kind of took that ball and ran with it. Like they actually probably cleaned it up and put some sanitizer on the nasty rubber ball and made it kind of spick and span, right? Like it's kind of like a nice thing. So
very much so. All right, let's go and move on to the cover of the second issue. They basically took the cover of the first issue, tore out the center of it, and we have Deadshot and Cheshire standing on the floor behind the ripped open poster of the first cover, and it says, "Who are the Secret Six?"
Yeah, so this is kind of a play on the whole, I don't know, like either Robin punching through the cover or like the X-Men punching through, the all new, all different X-Men punching through,
right?
Sort of with the old X-Men in the background. Like it's kind of a play on that. I mean, I guess you could argue Cheshire again is still in a sultry pose. So if you're not a fan of Talia showing you her behind, you're not going to be a fan of Cheshire kind of bending forward, looking seductive.
Right.
But I mean, I guess my positive on this is they're both really extremely well detailed figures, and it actually features characters who are the protagonists of the book. So like that's a plus. But I guess it's one of those things where you don't want to exactly spoil the surprise. Like to me, it was a surprise, and by this point, I think, if somebody had read the first issue, they'd be aware of what they're getting into. So then at that point, it's okay to feature the primary six on the covers.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a great cover. In fact, I think I like this a little better than the first one. Mm-hmm. Because, again, it's playing off the first cover. It's actually got our couple of our villains in here. That and I'm a big fan out of the Task Force X. I think Deadshot's one of my favorite characters on the team.
Yeah. So
that's another reason why I love this series, because it helps focus on him a little more. And again, that's why I'm covering that for the JLMay, because it does have Deathstroke, and it's kind of a villain's book, which what the Suicide Squad was. So that's why I tried to cover this book. And I have no problems Cheshire leading forward like that. Again, I am a bit of a perv, so it doesn't bother me at all. Well, I thought I used to work at an internet company, and that was my nickname there, was Big Perv, because I enjoyed watching the women as they walked by, But, yeah, so I'm not one of the ones that gets offended by this. And, again, talking about, the whole women, showing their backsides or bending over like Cheshire. Cheshire here is. Yes, females do read comics, but to be honest, for decades, comics' biggest sell was to adolescent boys.
Well, there's that. And then if you go back to what I said about Talia kind of getting Luther's coffee in this miniseries,
right?
Like, I think Cheshire is a little different. Like, I think Cheshire, you went into her betrayal, her sort of manipulation of all the male characters. I think she used her sexuality to her advantage. Like, some might say she has a sense of agency in this, and some might be horrified by her solution to her conundrum. So but it does make her a layered and well developed character, and I don't think she's just cheesecake. Like there's levels to her, and there's aspects of her where you see why she'd be considered reprehensible or villainous, but there's also aspects to her where you see how she has an allure. I mean, her whole thing is she's supposed to be familiar with poisons and poisoning characters, but yet there's that weird element, and this was going back to the Teen Titans books, that she was also very alluring. It's that notion of, playing with fire, right? Like you're going to get burned when you do it. But, in this case, instead of it being, Roy Harper or Speedy or Arsenal, in this case, Catman's the one sort of playing with fire, I guess. And at some point there's moments where people get burned. So, I mean, that, again, I think that makes her at least one of the more, it's one of the more interesting characters. And I think they do a good job of fleshing out each of the six. Like, I don't feel like any of the six got the short shrift, whereas I think sometimes in the context of the antagonists in this, like the main sort of cabal, the union heads, let's call them, of society, I think the people that are I think Calculator was getting a sort of revamp. So they do touch on him. He gets a decent sort of showing. I think Dr. Psycho has his moments in this. Luthor counts, but then doesn't, because it's not really Luthor. Right. And I think maybe, I don't know, like Black Adam has his moments in other series, but I think he kind of just tends to hang to the back and not exactly. He doesn't seem to exert his full potential in this. And I think that's also true of Talia. So I'd say, if anything, those are the weak links of the table for the antagonists, but I don't see that with the protagonists. Like, I think, even the ones that are not on the cover, I think all get good panel time, I guess we'll say. The characters are pretty well-rounded and developed. I mean, in some sense, you might even say that some of them are apologies to previous portrayals. Like if you enjoyed Catman and thought he got treated like a jerk in Brad Meltzer's Green Arrow, well, that's now apologized for and rectified. So that's, if you are a fan of Catman, this definitely bumps up his fan aura like 7,000 notches.
Oh yeah. Well, like they say, there's no bad characters, just bad writers. I mean, Catman's been taken as a joke for decades. And now with this series here, Gail's actually taking it and bringing him more to the forefront. And it's not just, well, here's a totally different Catman. She kind of explains, as we talked about in the series, why he changes from a lovable loser, if you will, to more of a badass character.
I mean, I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just thought she did a really good job with the way she did that. I mean, it's very explainable and very realistic the way they did that.
Yeah, I think the reason why Talia's in this book at all, though, is to kind of give Catwoman the Batman stamp of approval, like to kind of be like, he reminds me of someone who's a great man, and you all know who I'm talking about, and you're like, okay, and he definitely, he definitely gets that fan aura bump up where once you start comparing him to Batman, once he starts taking on like whole armies of supervillains all by his lonesome, once he starts doing these escape artist things that Batman would do, then it's not so much a joke that he's like, oh, look, it's a guy who instead of dressing like a bat dresses like a cat and does everything Batman does, only with cat paraphernalia, but I guess they took everything that was currently quote unquote great about Batman, the prep time, the fan aura, the can do no wrong, the Bat Love God, like whatever you want to call him, right? Like the Morrison prep time Bat God character, and they gave some of that trickled down to Catman, and now he has that, at least within the context of this miniseries and the Secret Six ongoing that goes on. Like, I mean, I think one of my favorite things was after they did the whole battle for the cowl thing. Like, I did love that issue. I think it was like issue 9, where it's like Catman and Bane go back to Gotham, and they all kind of like are having these they're like considering what has happened to Batman and everything after Final Crisis, and they're all kind of contemplating like, could we do the same thing that he does night after night? And then by the end of it, of course, they just kind of, think like, oh, the poor bastard Nightwing's got to take over. Like, who else was going to do it? And they leave it at that. But again, like there is that attempt to sort of elevate Catman to a Batman-like level.
The third issue shows our team of misfit heroes. They've got collars around them. We're looking down at them. Catman's looking up at us. Got a bloody nose. Deadshot's looking up at us. Cheshire's looking down. Very interesting cover. It's the villain and thing. He's got some pipes and a wall in the background. They're all chained together. Got chains around them. They got ankle bracelets. At least Catman has ankle bracelets on, preventing him from going very far. How about this one, Derek?
It's kind of like the torture porn version of a Kevin Maguire cover. I mean, we get to see the entire six, but they're in kind of like odd poses. Like they're all not looking up at the sky because they're all chained, and the content of this actual issue features a lot of torture from the crime doctor. Shout out to Dr. Ange, crime doctor. Woo! But the cover itself is, it's interestingly framed. I think this is the first time we get to see everyone on the cover. So you get to see, Ragdoll and Scandal Savage and Parademon along with Deadshot and Cheshire. And this is the first cover you see Catman on. And again, kind of what we were talking about before, he's front and center. So if anybody's supposed to be the one you probably think the most of, it's the one that's put dead center in the image, looking straight up at you. And he's the most defiant, right? He's the one who gets to break free and bust everybody out of jail, whereas everybody else is like, they'd like to, but they don't have the same fan aura, the same wherewithal to pull that off.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned Kevin Maguire, because when I was describing, I was going to say Catman's got kind of a Guy Gardner, want to make something of it.
He's got the want to make something of it bloody nose, I guess, without actually saying it, Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I got it very much, Kevin Maguire, Justice League image from this too. So, well, that seemed about the only one. But they're all, it's a great cover. It's, we got Catman showing that he's the dominant one up looking forward. Floyd's right behind him, not looking quite as up, but looking more up than almost everyone else. You got the rest of them kind of, more of a subdued, submissive pose with their head down, looking downward. Cheshire, I don't know if she has that long of fingernails. Well, that's probably actually something on her fingers, not actual fingernails. I just looked at that earlier.
She uses to distribute her poisons and toxins.
Yeah, it's another great cover. Haze around the characters a little bit. The lighting coming directly down on top of them. I think it's just a great job on this one. Let's go move on to issue 4's cover. Issue 4, we got a giant metal globe behind our team. We've got our team, Catman, Scandal, Deadshot, Ragdoll, Cheshire, and Parademon in various forms of escape. There's something exploding behind them, some rubble. Like I said, it's a very action-oriented cover, more so than any of the rest. We got Catman running towards us, Parademon flying at us. Very action-oriented. What are your thoughts on this issue, or this cover?
I mean, it's a good group shot of the six. I don't know how much it has to do with, like, the actual story. Like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like, it's got that World's Fair vibe that was in Batman Mask of the Phantasm, like where they had that, decrepit kind of dilapidated fairgrounds. And you imagine that's what's going on here, that they're running away from some kind of exploding fairgrounds. I think the actual content of the issue is more about them like breaking into like the secret bases and things like that.
Yeah.
I think we're probably, it's not quite extreme yet, but I think we are moving into that era of modern comics where the covers don't necessarily need to, or I guess they decided there's not a need for the cover to necessarily reflect the contents of the story within. But I mean, it's still a nice cover. I mean, it looks nice. The composition of it, kind of going back to our harping on the point, Catman's front and center. He's the biggest image on the cover, which highlights him. And then you've got Scandal following him up and Deadshot. And then, Cheshire is a little bigger than some of them as well, probably because, the relationship between Catman and Cheshire kind of comes to a head and kind of playing more supporting members of the team. You've got, Parademon and Ragdoll following up from behind the dust that's being churned up by the explosion and or tumbling globe, so, but yeah, it's really nice. Like there, but again, I'm not sure exactly what it has to do with the story.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I'm a fan of the older covers that actually showed you what was happening in that issue. And like you said, this is starting to lean more towards, this is a great cover. It doesn't matter what's going on inside. No, and I guess this is kind of a 5 seconds later type thing after what happens inside. It's showing when they're escaping. I'm assuming from the society's base, but yeah, it doesn't really tell you they're escaping from something, which again, they don't really, the comic actually doesn't really show them escaping. It's just 1 second they're there and next they're gone. So
well, yeah, they escape, but I guess I was more referring to, like, it'd be nice if in one of these panels of them running off and the explosion going off, that there was actually like some kind of, globe in the background, but there never is. So, the globe makes the cover look kind of cool, which works for the cover, but then I'm kind of like, well, I guess it'd be nice to see it in the context of the story too.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah, even if they had that globe inside the building somewhere that they're going through or something, it would have been a little nicer. But like you said, even though it's not, it's still a striking cover.
Oh yeah,
it's a great cover.
Definitely.
I say it's very, for those that like action-oriented covers, I think this is your cover. Got the explosion behind them. Everyone's in a pose of moving, of flight or running or something. So yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I think it's good insight that you mentioned about it being kind of a snapshot, right? It's taken like just after the explosion goes off, right?
You could almost take this cover and put it in there in between where we see our heroes. Yeah. And then the next time we see them back at the moving on to cover of issue 5. This one we show Catman and Deadshot. They're fighting close quarters. Deadshot shooting at them. There's files of various people. One we see for Luthor. That's the only name I can see offhand is Luthor's file. But yeah, there's files, folders, manila folders being thrown all over, papers coming out as the two do battle. What do you think about this cover?
It's a good cover. I imagine the folders are all related to, there's a line that I think Alexander Luthor has where he says, I imagine Calculator will provide you the details in some manila envelope or folder or whatever. Yeah. And so I imagine these are supposed to be all these Calculator-esque, kind of briefings or docs or something like that on targets or opposition or whatever. And, this is kind of, this I feel is a bit more story based, like the tension between Catman and Deadshot comes to a head. They reveal that, Deadshot was the person who put bullets in his pride's heads, all the lions. It's almost like, to me, like Catman is like supervillain John Wick, and he's pissed not that someone killed his dog, but that someone killed his pride of lions, and now he's beating the crap out of anybody who had something to do with it, So, and that of course turns out it extends to Deadshot. So, and again, I agree with you. I think Deadshot is a great design, a great character. I've loved him since I read like the greatest Batman stories ever told, and they had like the Englehart Rogers issue of Deadshot. Like I thought he was super cool looking in that, and then that led me to pick up like Suicide Squad and the Deadshot miniseries, and ever since then, I've been a huge proponent, huge fan of Deadshot. So, and it's fun to see, essentially this is, again, I think this also in some ways ferments the transfer of fan aura from Batman to Catman. Not only is Talia saying that he reminds her of some great man, but you've also got, a primary opponent of Batman coming to blows with Catman. And so I think that works as well.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, like you said, this is kind of last issue, which you don't really see in the issue. You actually get something kind of like this in the book. And it tells you what's going to happen. These two are going to come to head for something. We don't know why at this point when you pick up this book, but they're going to come to blows. And yeah, just a fantastic, again, very action oriented. They could have done just the two characters without the folders flying around the background, but I think that the folders being thrown around and flying around the background give it a little bit more action, a little more movement, if you will.
Yeah, you can feel the eruption. You know, it's something that is, I don't know. You can. I think more so than if it was just the two figures on the page. It's like an explosion of action as opposed to just kind of a standard action between two human figures, I guess.
Right. Yeah, very much so. And let's go move on to the last cover, issue 6. This we have, I'm not sure if it's Lex Luthor or Alexander Luthor. One of the Luthors front and center on the cover.
This was my take, because I remember when everybody was on the message boards and they were trying to figure all this crap out, like with the reveal, like if you notice in the actual story, whenever it's Alexander Luthor and he's disguised as Lex Luthor, he has blue eyes. And the trick was supposed to be like, oh, look, Luthor has green eyes. And I think that goes back to like the Loeb Superman Batman thing when he was like injecting himself with kryptonite venom laced shots or whatever towards the end of that, I think. So I could be wrong, but I think the intent here, even though it looks like he's dressed like Alexander Luthor is dressed mostly, I think the intent is that this is the big reveal. They're revealing that the actual Lex Luthor is Mockingbird, who is giving the Secret Six their orders, their marching orders. And I guess it also kind of works as, for all it could be representative of both, right? Because he's the one. I mean, arguably, like the one in the background should be Mockingbird, because you see like the screen readout of Mockingbird. But you could either argue that it is Alexander Luthor in the front and Mockingbird is in the screen in the back, or you could say this is them kind of revealing to you that the screen is actually Luthor as well. So, it's again, these are all very well framed. It kind of reminds me of like the kind of famous like Cockrum covers of X-Men, where you had like the new and old X-Men like fighting against one another, and I want to say that's like issue 100, but like that's I think pretty well done. I mean, I think for the most part, like the people they have facing off against one another kind of makes sense, and I think it's for the most part, I'd say I like all of these covers. Like there's not a bad one in the bunch.
A little less action oriented. I mean, you got the action getting ready to prepare in the background. You got the two teams getting ready to fight against one another. And yeah, it's very much of a reminiscent of, like you said, the Cockrum X-Men books or some of the old Justice League books, where you have heroes on one side, villains on the other side, getting ready to square off against one another. And I'm always a big fan of those kind of things. So yeah, no, this was, and yeah, there's not a bad cover in the bunch. They're all really great covers. And like I said, yeah, that could be Alexander in the front, or like you said, it could be real Luthor with the Mockingbird and screen behind him. Like I say, kind of trying to tell you that this is Mockingbird. It could go either way. But yeah, overall, very nice covers. Let's go ahead and dive into the issues themselves and talk about them a little bit. So we're going to start with the first issue. So like I said, in the synopsis, we start out showing the different members of society recruiting the different villains. And like I say, we get anyone from Mr. Freeze, Multiplex, which is a good Firestorm villain. Again, a big Firestorm fan always like Multiplex. And just show that they're recruiting people.
Yeah, this is it's a good setup to the punchline, which is Thomas Blake telling them basically to F off. Like he tells them, no, I don't want to be part of your stupid union. But I guess the one thing I thought of, though, when I was reading this is, like, I think some of the zeitgeist of this JLMay was, I think, the notion that this was a time where you felt like you were reading the DC universe, that you were like super invested, super connected, like you were picking up all these miniseries, all these books. And it wasn't so much you were reading like Superman or you were reading Batman or you were reading Wonder Woman. It was like you were reading this big, cohesive, epic story. But I think when you're so close to all that stuff, it's easy to miss like the forest for the trees. Because like, in looking at this sort of isolated, sometimes they do good jobs of being like, hey there, multiplex, and you go, okay,
Right.
that's multiplex. But then, it's not like they were calling him the Shadow Thief, or it's not like they called him Mr. Freeze. They just kind of are trying to be clever and be like, hey, Victor, hey, Mr. Sands, and it's like, if you're in the know, like, then you're like, okay, yeah, it's Mr. Freeze, it's the Shadow Thief, if you're like super close to it. But I think from like sort of a Jim Shooter editorial perspective, there is that moment of like, who the hell are these guys? Like, what's their names? Like, what do you, it's like, some of them they cover and some of them they kind of skip over and everything. So, and especially in that, like, there's that kind of fun 12 panel grid thing before they get to his no. And it's like, if you're in the know, you can recognize most of the characters and figure it out. Oh, there's Fatality, there's the Gentleman Ghost, there's Shrapnel, there's Phobia, there's Prometheus. Why Prometheus is agreeing to join them after they hunted him down, like, I don't know, but I guess he thinks he's going to get his cosmic key back, and then you got the Double Dare girls, like all this kind of crazy stuff. But if you didn't read whatever that Fifth Week event was, I don't know how you're going to know who those girls are, So
Right.
It's a good, well-paced, like, punchline gag, but I think from there is that part of me that misses some of that, like, even very specific Claremontian, like, in a splash page, like, this is Storm, she controls the weather, like, like this is exactly what she does, she's from Cairo, or whatever, like, and you're just like, okay, now I know who this is, moving on.
Or even, like I said, on this 12 panel, the page was story page 4 of the 12 panels. I like what they did, because I say, yeah, if you're in the know, if you read all these different books, if you read Superboy, you know that second panel down is Knockout from Superboy.
Yeah.
But if you don't read Superboy, who is this? I don't know who these people are. I think it might have been nice for newer readers or people that doesn't read the entire DC universe. Maybe they put a little box in there, the Gentleman Ghost, and so they'll let us know who each of these people are.
This is Plasmus. This is Gorilla Grodd. But I agree with that might be nice to have some reference. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, even if they did the old, like when they did those things in the 90s where, maybe there's a little org chart. There's an org chart, an organizational chart of the Society Union, at the back of the book, where it's got like Luthor's at the top of the pie chain, and then you got like Deathstroke and Talia and Calculator and Dr. Psycho, and then beneath that, and then you can have everybody else. Then, Gentleman Ghost, like way at or whatever. It's like, the Double Dare girls are like even lower than that. I'm like, if Talia's getting Luthor coffee, I don't want to know what the Double Dare girls are doing. Yeah.
That's for a more mature book.
Yeah. I don't want to know. So, yeah. Like, something like that would have been fun. But I mean, that's nitpicky, nerdy,
Oh, very much so.
Yes, right. So it's not detrimental or anything. I mean, they do a good job. I mean, you're immediately introduced to Thomas Blake, so that kind of sets up who the primary protagonist of the comic is. And then after that, you've got Scandal and Floyd Lawton, kind of on the mission. I guess the only other thing was, reading this in isolation, I guess, because I think at the time I was picking up like all the different books, so maybe I didn't question it or whatever. But there is that moment where they're on a mission in the Amazon, and it's like, it's that weird moment, like even in like, say, like the Justice League cartoon pilot where Superman and Batman reunite, and then I think they bust the Martian Manhunter out of, right, government prison or whatever's going on with that. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you turn around and it's like, oh, everybody's here. Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Wonder Woman, like Flash, they all show up out of the blue, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. Like, we're not going to like introduce them like one by one and get the big moments either. And I kind of feel like, I guess with, Floyd and Scandal and Cheshire, like, and Ragdoll and Parademon, along with the Fiddler, like you said, who gets capped in this, but it's like they were some kind of unit already. And it was kind of like, I think reading this in isolation, I just kind of went, what, they were already a thing? Like, were they a thing before this, or were they already a thing but just introduced as a thing in this? Like, I can't remember now. Like, I'm not close enough to it as I was back in 2005, where I probably could have answered that question. But now I'm looking at it kind of going, I don't remember if they were already a thing or not.
Yeah, no, this again, this is one of those things where they said they were a thing, but this was the first time they showed up as a thing.
Yeah.
In fact, this is the first appearance of Scandal and the new Ragdoll and Parademon.
Okay.
This is their first appearances. So, yeah, it's trying to lay it out like they've been a thing, but we've never seen them form. We never saw them become a thing.
I like those designs of the little hive like flyer guys. Like they kind of remind me of something that like maybe, Cobra Commander would implement, like their hive vipers or something like that. Like they look cool.
And I do like that. Yeah, their outfit's pretty cool. Right after we get Thomas Blake turning him down. See, I know of Dr. Psycho, but I haven't read a whole lot of stories with him. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be this unstable.
He's a Wonder Woman villain. I mean,
right.
he's generally portrayed as a corrupted kind of male character who typically, I mean, it's funny. I think in the original comic, he was kind of done wrong by a woman, and so that was his motivation for perpetrating wrongdoings on others. Right. But then he kind of took it to like a higher level, I guess. It was like, I'm going to hypnotize everybody, or whatever. And I can't remember, like, this may have been one of those characters where they were probably embarrassed by him. Like, it's funny, I don't remember him too much in the George Perez reboot or whatever, after the Crisis. Like, I think my primary exposure to him is like the really old school, William Moulton Marston books, like where he was just kind of like a charlatan, a kind of guy who took advantage of people's gullibility, I think, and kind of, was somebody who had a cult of personality despite his stature and size. Whereas in this, I think I'm trying to remember, like, this is something I'm not too familiar with, but I don't remember exactly when, like, the whole low-level telepathy type stuff was introduced. To me, I think, just in my reading history, this is probably one of the first miniseries that I read Dr. Psycho in.
Yeah, I do remember, because I said I don't recall reading this thing the pre-Crisis, because I didn't read a whole lot of the Wonder Woman before that. I do remember him showing up in the George Perez Wonder Woman book, but again, it's been 30 years, 35 years since I read those. So I don't remember if he was that much of a psycho, in quotes, when he was in the Wonder Woman books. I don't know if this is just an extension of his character, or if it's Gail not being that familiar with them. And they say, well, here he is, and so she just made him a little more nuttier than he actually was. I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't remember a whole lot about his post-Crisis status at this point. But I do like that we, as we saw, got Catman reintroduced, and again, he went from being a joke to being this living out in the wild and just being this tough, very muscular. I don't want none of Luther's games. I'm busy with my lions. Leave me alone. So I do like that. Like I said, we get our first introduction to the Secret Six, which is been a team, but this is their first appearance, and I kind of like that. It lets us know that this is a storyline that's been going on. These guys have probably had adventures before. I don't know how long they've been together. They don't give us really that much information, but they've been a team for a little while. They've worked together a little bit, and they don't necessarily like each other, but they do what they need to do. And I had to look up and see, because I remember back during, I think it was Cosmic Odyssey, there was that Parademon, I think called him Mike, got left behind on Earth. And I had to look up and see if...
I don't remember if it had a name or not. I remember, is that the Parademon that, like, Batman shot a hole through?
Yes.
Because I remember there was one that was left over, and then he goes down in the sewer, and, like, I think it's about how Jim Gordon said, something in the sewer like ate a bunch of his men, and so Batman goes down and he wrestles the gun from the Parademon, blows a hole in his chest, and basically
maybe that's what it was.
Batman kills people too, guys. Totally killed that guy. It's like, it's okay, it's a Parademon, but he totally killed him. So yeah.
But this is Parademon's first appearance. So I was just I'd look up and see for sure.
Yeah, he's a funny character, Parademon. I like how he, it's like Blake's sitting down at the Secret Six round table or whatever, and he has those lines about, it's like kind of Cheshire and Catman are kind of having some moonlighting bickering going on, and then he's kind of like, I believe that female is in season. It is like a fever of the loins. And then when Thomas Blake says something back to Cheshire, he's like, ha, the male has the loin fever as well. You know, he's a funny character.
Oh yeah, no, he's kind of like Drax from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Very literal, very speaks his mind.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, totally.
And I do like how the parademon seems to like or have a connection with Ragdoll, which means, again, it leads further into that whole, they've got some sort of backstory that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
I do like that. They've been around for a little while at least, and they've got, something's happened in the past that the parademon feels that he owes himself to the Ragdoll for whatever reason. And I do like you're saying, he always refers to Ragdoll as clown.
Yeah.
Clown. That's not fun. So please don't call me clown.
But yeah, he's got the pet name, and he usually kind of loses his shit anytime something bad happens to Ragdoll. So, and
here when we get after the Fiddler fails to stop the Hive agents, and the Deadshot takes one out, and they get them all off. I like how Deadshot's talking to Fiddler. He's like, one thing I always wondered: you got this genuine Strad violin. You're classically trained, yet you call it a fiddle, like some inbred hick. And then he shoots him and kills him, which eventually leads into a new fiddler. Which I talked about in last year's JLMay. She showed up there. So this is kind of what I talked about previously. Here at the very bottom, after he kills Fiddler, Scandal says that we're going to get a new warm body, which leads into talking to Catman. What do you think about this segment?
They set up that he's secretly mailing letters to Oliver Queen. And, I guess it's supposed to be clever. Like the Secret Six is headquartered in the House of Secrets. Like, get it? Like, kind of thing, which, it works. It's cool. That's fun. But yeah, otherwise, I guess, the only other thing about that sequence is they kind of establish what it's like. Mockingbird, which is Lex Luthor, he's got certain motivations for all the characters to work together. And some of them are positives, right? They're saying, hey, you could rule a continent once this is all over with. It's like Australia.
As it turns out, I have this affinity for beachfront property.
What do you want?
Australia.
Like they all get their own continent, right? Like once this is all said and done, supposedly. But if he has to play hardball, then obviously Deadshot's got his kid, that's up on the chopping block, and Ragdoll needs a certain like oils or something so that his skin does not atrophy and everything, know, and so they go down the list of all the characters about, what they would hold against them, whether it's, killing more lions in front of Catman or whatever. And I'll just throw this out there, but for everybody who's like, Cry for Justice is the most awful thing ever. Like here you've got the first instance of Leon's life being threatened because supposedly there is an explosive planted in her, and at any point in time that could have gone off. So I'm just saying the seeds were planted even way back when that her future was not looking too bright. So
See, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to mention the same thing that they threatened Leon here, and you know what? This was bad. Wait until that Justice League story with Harper or with Roy Harper and all that.
Yeah. They'll see it through. So
yeah. But they're on that same page where they're showing this. They're saying that she has an explosive implanted in her. I like the look on Cheshire's face there. Being a parent, if I was told one of my kids had an explosive, I didn't do what you said, blow them up. Well, I made Jeff joy at this point. That's a different story entirely. That's because I've been at home for the last month. But no, as a parent, I can very much feel Cheshire's pain, having her child threatened like that and out of her hand.
Yeah.
And that leads us into the first issue, like I said, where they get told, not only do I've got the carrot and the stick, here's the stick, and the carrot is you each get a continent. Catman gets Africa, Deadshot gets America. They all get their own little continent to rule. So, any other thoughts on the first issue?
No, I'm good. I mean, I think it's a good setup. They establish the stakes and they kind of introduce you to the team and the cast of characters, I think it's pretty well done.
So, and I agree. Like I say, it's a nice setup. We get all our characters introduced. Like I say, some of these, half of the team is new. Scandal, Ragdoll, and Parody were all new characters created for this series that they're going to use most of them later on. So I think they all had a good setup, and we learned a little more about each of them as we go along. The second issue, like I talked about in the synopsis, we start out with Floyd waking up the kitchen where he has his gun out, and Catman's there with a knife, and they have a little chat, if you will, a little man-to-man talk. We'll have some breakfast. What do you think about that section?
It's a way to start the morning with a knife and a gun at your throat before you have eggs, hot peppers, or whatever. But I guess again, it's just establishing, I guess, probably from a female gaze that men have lots of testosterone. That they have to whip it out and show what they have to one another to sort of respect one another, and I think this is probably something that is written from a female gaze. So yeah.
Well, I say, and Floyd's usually pretty steadfast, and he's pretty forward like that. And I think Catman, this is just them showing more about Blake, aka Catman, trying to make him less of a joke.
Yeah, he can hold his own. He can be the alpha in a room with other dogs that are trying to be the alpha, like type thing.
Very much so. Like they talk about what's going on with Mockingbird.
You see how it ends though, right? Like the real reason why he's the alpha and the real reason why it's from a female gaze is he ends the conflict by making eggs. And what better way to have the biggest, awesomest badass in the story end a conflict by doing something that probably a chauvinist would think is a woman's job, right? Like where it's like, but he doesn't care about that. It's like he probably makes some really good eggs. He probably makes the best eggs because he's Catman and he's super awesome, right? So like that's cool. And it also shows kind of why Floyd, is not ultimately the coolest guy in the room, because he probably doesn't know how to make eggs. He probably can shoot you in the head, but he doesn't know how to make eggs. Or if he did make eggs, they would suck. So there you go.
Very much so. And then we get a little thing here with Scandal laying in bed, typing a love note to somebody, which we don't know who it is at this point.
Somebody who we don't know who it is that used to be in Superboy comics.
Yeah. We'll find out eventually who it is, but yeah. It's also setting up that these guys, Scandal, even though this is her first appearance, she's got a background. She's got a history with somebody, which we'll find out. So I like the way that, they set this up as she is an ongoing character, that even though this is the first time they're showing her in this series, she's actually been around.
I think it's interesting that they later, especially when they square off against the antagonists, like one of the people that Scandal will square off against is Talia, and Talia even makes the comment that they're both, I guess, queens or princesses or whatever you want to call it. They're both of this certain lineage, like, that it is it makes sense that they would square off against one another because they're of the same quote unquote caliber. But I also think it's interesting that she begins the letter with beloved, because that's something that Talia would frequently use to call Batman. So even in that sense, they both are they're aristocratic and erudite enough to write letters calling their loved ones beloved. So
they're very much not the same character, but they're the same character. Like they both.
You know what it's like? It's like, for me, it's like it's the way I always thought of in Hamlet. Like you've got Hamlet, you've got Laertes, and you've got Fortinbras, and like to me, like ideally, they should all be of a similar type. Like they should all be like cool dudes in their mid-20s that are young and virile and ready to scrap and that kind of thing. And it's the same. I mean, I don't know about Scandal and Talia, but I guess you could say the same thing. They should both be young in their mid-20s and ready to scrap, right? Like, but also with the kind of they have that aristocratic kind of nature, like that upbringing, they have a sense of decorum about them that they both share. So it to me, like that's, you can even tell from the panel, just the panel alone, like not only the way she writes the letter and the way, her language and everything, but it also, you're like, look at the way she puts her gauntlets up on the wall, like the way she's got the metal tea set that's like right there on the bed, and the way she's got the dresser that's immaculate with the mirror and everything. Like you can just tell, like she's the daughter of Scandal Savage. She's used to living in the lap of luxury. Like she probably had all the best tutors, all the best, servants, all the best, teas, all the best, fighting trainers, all the best, whatever it is. Like she probably took all kinds of lessons and that kind of thing. So and you can tell all that from a single panel image. So
very much so. And then move on. We get again, we continue with Floyd and Blake's breakfast, and they kind of discuss their differences. Whereas Catman likes to hunt, likes honor, if you will. Blake's like, you're a dilettante. Hunter assassination, what's the difference? What difference does it make if the target sees it coming? If anything, it's kinder in the back of the head. Take out the brain before the body knows it's gone. Which it kind of comes back to later on in the series. And then we get, like we talked about, we get here, it refers to, you were talking about earlier, the Brad Metzler Green Arrow run where Catman was in it. We get a little bit of that. Floyd's basically saying what I was saying earlier, that, Catman used to be a joke. Now he's actually something. And he's like, Mockingbird has leverage on the rest of us. What are you here for? What happened to you? This we find out, well, you found out earlier too, but this is where he tells him, Luther ordered Deathstroke to kill his lions. His friends are now my enemies. The friend of my friend and my enemy and things like that. So,
yeah, I guess in hindsight, Floyd's kind of fishing to see how much Blake knows, right?
Yeah, because we know, having read the series, we know that actually Deadshot was one that, Deadshot was the one that killed the lions, not Deathstroke. So, that's what I think is, he was kind of fishing around, like you said, trying to figure out what Catman knows about what actually happened.
I guess the one thing maybe that he's not equivalent to in terms of Batman's fan aura is he's probably not, Catman's not going to be in that group of world's greatest detectives that Bendis puts together in his Leviathan stuff or whatever, right? So
right, yeah, very much so. But he still figures it out. It takes him a little bit, but he still does. Yeah, he's not the great detective, but he's decent because he eventually figures out what happened.
Yeah. He comes to it on his own eventually with a little nudge and push from Cheshire.
And they move on to the team taking their first mission. They're going to Gotham to, like I talked about in the synopsis, they're going to take a freighter that has a bunch of Thingarian weapons on board. And again, we get a little bit more of Parademon and Ragdoll's interaction here and how Parademon feels about Ragdoll. You, feline man, the clown sits in front. And Parademon, it's not really necessary. Well, you put it that way. I do like their interaction there.
You may stay if you do not object to me eating your larynx. Okay, I will move.
It's just a seat. I'm fine.
I'm good. I'll take a different seat.
And then we get the villains listening in on their plan. We see Talia on this page again, not to harp on it, because again, I don't mind. But the first view we get of Talia here is just a shot of her butt. Next shot we get a side view, her face is covered with her hair. Again, I can see a lot of people complaining about that nowadays. And especially, like you said earlier, since Talia, which is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, a big player in Batman universe, doesn't get a lot to do here other than getting coffee and running errands for Luther.
Yeah, you could see, Calculator being his hand, but
right.
And even Deathstroke being his fist, but then I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I guess, Talia's there for her royal pedigree, I suppose, but then it does, I don't know, maybe this is me reading too much into it, but it does seem like, they kind of, send Talia off to, handle these new recruits. And, I'm kind of joking about the go get me coffee thing, but I mean, it does feel like that from time to time, which I think is ironic, but it's fine.
One thing I say, and like I was saying, a lot of people might complain about that they're using a lot of Talia's sex appeal, but to me, that's kind of who she is. She's a badass fighter, but whenever she's in the Batman books, she's very sexy and she's always, hitting on Batman, if you will.
It's weird though. I wonder because this looks, how should I put this? This looks, these panels look more like a girl next door sexy rather than like an Arabian princess sexy, I guess, and that I don't think is the first thing you think of when you think of Talia al Ghul. You don't think of like, oh yeah, Talia, she's in a little sweatpants and she's got her, her hair in a ponytail and she's jogging. She's jogging with all the League of Assassins. It's gonna be fun. The jogging. There's some ninja stars of people who are in her jogging vicinity, like I don't know, it's kind of funny, and it's like Calculator sitting there playing with all these like Rubik's cube looking things and everything, right? So I mean, it's like I'm not. It looks, I don't know. Talia looks very homey, like she's chilling at home, as opposed to like I don't know. She looks like she's comfortable.
Like she looks like she's Jenny from around the block or something. But
yeah.
What you see? Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still Jenny from the block. Used to have a little, now I have a lot. No matter where I go, I know where I came from. Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still Jenny from the block. Used to have a little, now I have a lot. No matter where I go, I know where I came from. I'm down to earth like this.
Yeah.
And then actually that would be my one complaint about this. Not that they've got, shorter from the back and, got sexy views of her, but the fact, like you said, she looks like she's wearing sweats and a t-shirt. And I don't know if I've seen Talia ever dressed like that.
Yeah. That
seems to be very anti-Talia.
Yeah.
Because like you said, she's from royalty, if you will. Maybe not technical royalty, but she feels like she's royalty. She uses words like beloved. So yeah, I don't know if I would see her dressing this far down.
Yeah, it's like for someone who probably considers themselves a member of the aristocracy, like she's certainly, I guess slumming it in the midst of these other, I guess, quote unquote colleagues,
Right.
But I mean, I guess Luther's wearing his casual sweater or whatever he's got on there too. So it's not like Luther's dressed to the nines in this in these panels either. So,
but then from what we know at the end of the series, that we realize that this isn't our Luther.
Yeah.
So maybe Alexander does dress a little differently.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I'm not going to play too much about Talia because, as our mutual friend Chad would say, she is hot. So
they're hot. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, like I said earlier, these books, while there is a female audience out there, I don't know how big that audience is, but a lot of these books are mainly focused at prepubescent boys, so, 13, 14, 15. And I don't care what you think. Young boys like looking at hot women. Okay, I'm a 50-year-old man. I like looking at hot women. So, it's a guy thing. And that's mostly, even though Gail is a female, most of your writers and artists are guys for the most part. So that's why a lot of these books are aimed more towards a guy's perspective, in my thoughts anyways.
Yeah.
And then we have the mission going off. This is really what you want to say about that. And I do like here a couple pages later. Well, there's a couple of things. There's one that's when they're driving, they're getting in the middle of a rainstorm, and Cheshire was complaining about them raining, and they're in this Jeep without a top or anything. It's you can't plan the weather here. It kind of lets us know that the rain in the middle of summer is maybe an oddity, which is kind of a clue what's going to happen later. Weather Wizard shows up.
Yeah, that is a boss 2-page spread. That's a really cool spread with all all the society villains that show up and everything. It's really nice. It's got a wide breadth of different characters. I mean, man, you talk about Shag saying she's hot. Like, shout out to Killer Frost, man. Like, she's hot. Like, that's the spread is good. I was sitting there trying to like remember everybody, and I was like sitting there going, what's that guy's name again? And I was like, oh yeah, Hellhound. I was like, they got Hellhound in the center of the image, and I was like trying to remember, because I remembered he was in Catwoman and that it was like a Jim Ballant designed guy, but I was like, what the hell was that guy's name again? And I was like, oh, it's Hellhound, you know. So yeah, but that's a really nice spread of all those guys. Like, so I thought that was really good.
That'd make a very nice poster. And being a big Firestorm fan, like we do have Multiplex, Killer Frost, and Hyena part of this group.
Yeah.
I would definitely put that on my wall as a poster. And I do like on the page before that, where Deadshot's talking to Cheshire, he's like, what are you smiling about? Well, I just remember what happened to the Fiddler when he aired on a mission. And he's like, not this time, sweetie. If anything screwed up, it's mocking. What? And that leads in that really cool 2-page spread there. But yeah, it's like a who's who of DC second and third string characters for the most part. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you've got it's Cheetah, Shadow Thief, Murmur, Knockout, Captain Nazi. What is that? I think that's Crazy Quilt.
Yeah, female Crazy Quilt.
Polaris, Black Spider, Hellhound, the Wizard, Fatality, Weather Wizard, Count Vertigo, Killer Frost, and then Multiplex and Hyena. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very nice. I would love to have this as a post. It's very nice. And this guy's like, run. I said, run.
It is. Like, I mean, again, kind of emphasizing his fan aura. Like, Catman sends them all away, and he tries to face all these guys by himself. I mean, at the very least, though, they don't. It's not like he somehow gets the upper hand, because it's like he gets a few good hits in on some of Hellhound's dogs. Right. But I think after that, to me, it seems like he's fighting with the big boys. You know, it's like Fatality and Captain Nazi have fought Captain Marvel and Green Lantern. You know, so, and then Wonder Woman's fought. Or a Cheetah. So I mean, to me, like, no matter how big your fan aura is, it's no shame when you're getting gang piled by people who normally fight, you know, Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern. I mean, there's no shame in that, you know? Oh,
not at all. But I do like right before the fight takes place, when Catman's telling him to run, get out of here, Cheshire's like, what in the world do you think he's doing? Deadshot's like, faces his enemy head on, I guess, like a man. Which again goes back to their conversation they were having in the kitchen earlier.
Yeah. They at least have a mutual bro-spect for one another. Bro-spect.
I like that phrase.
Yeah.
And Scan's like, we should go back. We have to help. And Deadshot's like, not a shot in hell, lady. Get your ass in that Jeep. They take off, and then Weather Wizard shows up. Hi, Floyd. You should have dressed warmer. Maybe worn a coat.
I like how like Weather Wizard's kind of snarky, but he is pretty funny when he basically has Dr. Polaris, you know, watching his back, because I like it when he's like, dude, see, the thing about shooting at a guy whose buddy is Dr. Polaris, the world's greatest master of magnetism, is that your bullets may be fickle and simply decide to be uncooperative. You know, so that's funny.
Well, then he continues on. Weather Wizard's like, I've been needing to tell you this for a while, Deadshot. You're good with a gun, but people like Polaris and me, we're more like gods. Ragdolls, I'll turn your organs to juice, Wizard. You'll beg for death. You know what, Junior? I'll pass. And then I said we end the scene and end the page with the Crime Doctor strapping Blake in, and got some electricity going, and he's got his eyes pulled open, Clockwork Orange style.
Yeah.
Who is Mockingbird? Dun dun dun. Any other thoughts on this issue?
Nah, I'm good. I enjoyed it. I think my favorite part was the spread of villains and everything. I thought that was super cool.
Very much so. Yeah, that was. In fact, out of the first two issues, I think that was the best part altogether. Was that? Yeah, that's this fantastic spread showing all the villains getting ready to fight. I think we move on to the third issue. That's the cover with the villains, the Secret Six all captured, which was where our last issue ended. So, like we talked about in the synopsis. We get the Crime Doctor telling them that each can spend an hour in his chair, and then they'll each get 5 hours rest for the begin again. And I do like that he'll be asking a variety of questions. There may be some amnesty for those who inform on their teammates, or you may find your punishment double for being a traitor. Like to keep things unpredictable. I do like that little phrase there.
Yeah, I guess if you cross the picket line with the society's union, you end up getting put in a Saw movie. You know, you get torture porn or whatever, and poor Parademon sitting there doing his "Thank you, Granny. May I have another?" You know?
That's my comment. I love that page there because we got Parademon in the middle getting tortured and enjoying it. On one side, we got our Secret Six. The other side, we got the listing of the society. Very much old school JLA, JSA crossover type.
Yeah. Did the change in penciler, was that noticeable to you? Did it work just fine? Like, because
it worked fine for me. I didn't really notice a change in the penciler. Yourself?
I noticed it in the credits. Right. It's definitely a different. It's a slightly different style, but it's not. I don't think it's so completely out of left field. Like it's not like you're going from Dale Eaglesham to like a Sam Keith or something, or when he was doing his kind of black kind of 5 year later Legion look or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's so completely out of the realm of what had came before. So I think it works fine. Like but I guess if you look at it, there are some slight differences that are kind of apparent as far as they're not the same penciler, but I still think it flows pretty well. I don't know if it was a schedule thing or a timing thing. They just needed somebody to fill in so stuff could come out, so the trains could run on time or whatever. That's kind of what I imagined was going on.
I've seen some series where they change arcs in the middle and you can tell it's a jarring change.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and this is definitely not jarring. It's more subtle. Like whoever picked Val Semix as the fill-in artist for Dale Eaglesham, if that was the editor, they were totally awake at the wheel. They're kind of like, this should work. Like this. We'll get our fill-in and the trains will run on time, but it won't be so completely jarring that somebody's going to be like, what is this? It looks totally different from the last two issues.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it very much goes together. And then, we had back in the cell, they're listening to their friends being tortured. Like, Catman's covering his ears, and Floyd's like, I tried that. Didn't help. It's like, coming down the case of humanity, that shot. Don't push it, Blake. I haven't had a smoke in 2 days. Which kind of lets us know how long they've been in here and what's going on. It's a nice way to let us know what's going on in the story and the time. How much time's passed.
I like that all the villains outside of the torture room are playing Metropolopoly. Like it's like Metropolis, but Metropoly. Like, so, I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, don't pass go, buy Suicide Slum for $200, type thing, So
yeah,
that was kind of cool. I think a little after the moment with Blake and Floyd Lawton, kind of trying to not listen to the screams and everything, they cut back into like the Gotham headquarters of the society. And like one thing I think is interesting too is there is this moment like where Black Adam basically is not really interested in torturing his opponents, and they have this slight disagreement about it. And the thing I think is interesting is Talia almost kind of pleads with him in a panel, and she says, I too deplore these crude methods, but for the good of the world, do we have a choice? And like, that seems to be the most they do with that. But it got me thinking like, oh, I wonder what a Black Adam Talia pairing would have been like would Ra's al Ghul be into that? Like would Talia be into Black Adam? Like what if they were some kind of like, I don't know, royal joining or something? You've got the League of Assassins and Kondak, kind of merging or something like that. And it just, I don't know, it occurred to me just the way she's got her hand on his bicep and everything. Like, it seems like way more familiar than anyone. Like, basically, like, Dr. Psycho's not going to be allowed to be that familiar. Like, he's about to kill Dr. Psycho. Like, the Calculator's not going to, like, put his arm around Black Adam and be like, hey, bro, like, chill out, man. Like none of these guys can do that. Whereas I think Talia is probably the only person in that room that could pull that off, whether there's any romantic designs or not. Like Black Adam will allow her to do that,
Well, again, that's because Talia's hot and she can touch me how she wants to.
Yeah,
but that's entirely. So before we get to that, real quick, when they're playing the Metropoly, whatever it is, one, I guess, complaint I have about the art is when the bottom panel with Killer Frost, I don't like the way her mouth looks. It looks too big.
I see what you're saying. It kind of looks overdone. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's not bad artwork overall. It's just, something about that, the way she's done there. She's got kind of a, what's her name? From The Mask.
Cameron Diaz?
Yes, Cameron Diaz mouth. How she's got that bigger than ordinary mouth from the looks of it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It does look overdrawn. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I say everything else looks fantastic in here. Moving on from there, we get back Dr. Psycho strapping Scandal in.
Or the crime doctor, right?
I'm sorry, crime doctor, yes. Crime doctor strapping in, starting to work on her. And then we get back at the prison cell. We get Floyd and Catman talking a little more, finding out what's going on, why Floyd's here, what Mockingbird has on him. And like you talked about earlier, we find out from Ragdoll that apparently this is the one of the sons of the original Ragdoll. And apparently he had surgeries to make himself be that way. Like you're saying, he's a special chemical emollient, or his bones would tear right through the bones would tear through his skin. And my beauty would end, even though he's got his mask off. And I don't know if I'd call him beautiful there, but what do I know?
It's interesting because also like when Cheshire returns from being tortured, she's actually crying, but she has that moment of she doesn't want anyone to see her in that state of weakness, and she repeats almost like a mantra, like, don't look at me, there are no tears, like, so right. That's an interesting moment. I mean, I sometimes, given what she ultimately does and certain things she's done in the past, there's that part of me that like wonders, because it's a good moment for a female character that is constantly trying to give the appearance of being strong and doesn't want to let that slip in this context, no matter what is happening to her. Like she still wants to appear strong and not weak in front of even her own colleagues, even in this private scenario or whatever. But the other aspect of it is, given that she's like poisoned like tons and tons of people, and given that she's willing to sacrifice one child and just figure she can make another, it kind of reminded me of that moment in Death in the Family where they give Lady Shiva the truth serum and she's like, babies? I have dozens of babies, like, and she just laughs. And it's like almost that thing of like how kind of, I don't know, callous that is. So it's like, well, are those crocodile tears? Like, are those real tears? Are they not? Like, I don't know. So.
Right.
I mean, I believe what's going on with Scandal a little more than I believe what's going on with Cheshire. So.
Well, there's a part right after that where Deadshot's, he's like, what's going on you? That thing in your kid's skull, right? Cheshire, the bomb. She's like, we want another discussion, please.
Yeah.
And it's, again, along the same way. It's like she's trying not to show weakness in front of the guy. Because, again, these are the guys, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to appear weak in front of them. And then here at the bottom of the page, we get the crime doctor. They're smoking a cigarette, relaxing.
That's so creepy. It's like he's having an after sex smoke, but for him, it's a torture porn thing. It's a very disturbing image, like he's like, oh, I need that smoke after I did that. That was some great torture there, like it's very disconcerting, Well,
I do like how he stopped torturing her for a while, and when Captain Nazi returned to the cell, he's like, rest well, young lady. The doctor gives you his gratitude. Trying to make the rest of the team think that she turned on him and ratted him out or told information. And it almost worked because, Floyd's like, lady, you sold us out. I guess making you pay gives me no reason to live through this. But again, Catman, as we've talked about, he's got that new bat complex, if you will, and he steps up and he's like, hold on, it's a setup. They're trying to feed us. They want to break us apart. So again, it's Catman taking a new step forward and continuing his growth of being not a joke, if you will.
Yeah, and he pulls a Batman level escape, right? He's all strapped to the collar and lets the crime doctor, cut his bonds, and then he not only does he stab the nurse, he takes the medical tray, and it's like that thing of, oh, this is supposed to help people, but now I'm going to use this to beat the hell out of you, and so it's a pretty cool moment. And I mean, it's one of those things where they make those characters so reprehensible, like there's no, I don't know, I feel no remorse over Catman stabbing the nurse and beating the hell out of the crime doctor. To me, like they did some pretty horrible things to all those characters. I guess the only thing that it's funny, like this era, it's interesting, and it's like, this may be a funny thing to say, but I feel like they made Captain Nazi like kind of a jobber to people in this era. Like I don't understand, and it's not so much like I'm like, yay Captain Nazi or anything, but it's like it goes back to what I was saying before. Like Captain Nazi is an opponent of Captain Marvel, so in my mind, the easier it is to beat Captain Nazi, then the easier it is to beat Captain Marvel. So what you're telling me is by transitive property, if A can beat B, then B could beat C. So what you're telling me is Catman can beat up Captain Marvel. And I'm like, I don't know that I buy that exactly. And they did the same thing in, I think, Judd Winnick's run. It's like after he gets stabbed in the eyes by Catman, I think he comes back with like cybernetic eyes. And then I think the Red Hood kills him or something. Like, and I was just kind of like, I don't know. I just felt like he was a complete and total jobber in this. And I guess, there's probably a sense of meta satisfaction in that for people. But in terms of, I don't mind that he gets defeated. I just wish they would have come up with, a better way, like where it's like Catman cuts like a string or something and drops like, 5 trucks on him or something, like then that I would be like, okay, that's cool. But, like in this instance, it's just like, okay, his eyes are his weak part. Like, I don't know. Like, I always thought of those guys as like, dude, if you're in a fight with Captain Marvel and you're exchanging blows with him, I mean, it's like, why can't Captain Marvel just pull a Three Stooges and be like, yuck, 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 and defeat him that way? Like I mean, I never saw that before. So I'm questioning, like, sometimes people like put too much like science in the comic book. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know that like that part of it, I always thought was kind of like, hey, why is it so easy, like to defeat Captain Nazi? Like, I just wanted it to be more of a, I wanted him to be more of an obstacle than he was. Like if it was, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of somebody who's not super powered. Like if it was, what was that dude's name in Wonder Woman or whatever? I can't think of it. He was like a Justice Society guy, but he had like a cape and he was yellow and he was part of that like evil access group or something. Like if it was him, like I don't think he's super powered like to the level of Captain Marvel. So like somebody could just like Baron Blitzkrieg or something. I forget.
Yeah, something like that.
But one of those guys, like if it was some guy like that, and your whole meta goal is to like punch a Nazi, then it's like, well, make sure the Nazi's like punchable by human means, or make sure your guy, it's like or make sure it's like I don't know, Parademon or somebody who stabs him, because then that way you're like, oh, dude, Parademon's from Apocalypse. He probably can hold his own against Captain Nazi. Like, that works. Right. But in this case, it's like they have to do the whole, Batman Love God fan aura thing. I mean, he literally, Catman is wearing his mask and is shirtless doing the Neil Adams Batman Love God thing when he's stabbing Captain Nazi with all these needles in the eyes. So, yeah.
Yeah, see, I know Captain Nazi is a Shazam villain. I don't know, or Captain Marvel. I don't know that much about him, though, so I don't know if his eyes maybe are a weak point. I don't know. That's one thing I question. I'm like, I don't know, is that something that would happen, or isn't his, because, yeah, you'd think, like in one of the Superman movies, when Superman got shot in the eye, maybe it was Superman Returns, when Superman got shot and hit him in the eye and bounced off.
And the bullet bounces off of his eyeball. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You would, like you were saying, he's fought Captain Marvel. You would think that even his eyes would be a little bit invulnerable.
Yeah, yeah.
So backing up just a couple pages, I do like when Catman's escaping and he just takes his teeth down, he rips the manacles on his arms off. I thought that was a great scene. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a good,
get some help.
That's a good panel.
Him standing with the tray, like, I'm going to beat the snot out of you now.
I'm like, even keeping with we'll call it cat love god now, because he's got the cat love god look. But even after that, like, Cheshire immediately like kisses him, and it's more of a close up, but it does remind me of the whole when Batman was shirtless, fighting Ra's al Ghul in the desert, and then it has that end passage where Talia, kisses him in the desert and everything. Like that's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that. I'm thinking maybe Gail was a big fan of that Batman era of Batman, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Because she's pulling heavily from it.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
No, I like that next panel. I ain't gonna kiss you nothing, Blake.
Yeah. He's like, I'll cry when I have time, Lawton.
And we get Parademon waking up. Oh, did I miss anything?
I like how they're like the louder the screams, the easier Parademon sleeps, because it reminds him of home.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of, it's sad, but it's funny.
Yeah. And then we get our team escaping. They're slicing these people up, shooting at them. And the only casualty, I believe, actual death here is Hyena. They want to send a message. And again, being a Firestorm fan, like I say, Firestorm is one of my biggest favorite characters. I don't know if I like the fact that Hyena gets shot just because he's a Firestorm villain, but I do like the fact that these villains, because essentially that's what the Secret Six is, a bunch of villains, is sending a message to Luthor, who they think is Luthor. We're done playing and stay away from us.
Yeah. I guess Hyena was on that expendable list,
Yeah.
So
who can we kill off this? Hyena, there's a couple of them. You kill one of them off. All right. There he goes. Like that. Tell them they're already dead. They just haven't fallen down yet. And again, it's a nice panel there at the very end with the team. Again, we got Cat God there in the background.
Yeah.
Shirt off. Very much a Neil Adams Batman pose. His shirt off, but his mask and his cape on. And the rest of him just standing there backing up Floyd. That's just a neat shot. I like that.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Any other thoughts about this issue? Or we move on to the next one?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I like the dialogue too. It almost reminds me a little bit of Kenshiro from the Fist of the North Star. He's like, tell them they're already dead. It's like, you are already dead. But it's like with Deadshot or whatever. Yeah,
right.
This was fun. I mean, this is the part. See, I know I'm not a huge. I mean, I've never seen any of the Saw films. I only saw like the first Hostel movie. But like, I think I can appreciate what they refer to as torture porn if the torturers get their comeuppance. Like that's, to me, it's like that aspect of an Elizabethan or Shakespearean revenge tragedy. It's not that I take some kind of perverse schadenfreude in watching Thomas Blake get tortured or Cheshire get tortured or Scandal get tortured or whatever, but I do take a sense of satisfaction in when the crime doctor gets smacked, like when they shoot and or slash, like Sledge, I think from Guy Gardner Warrior. It's like he's sitting there chuckling while they get tortured, and it's like, guess what, buddy? Like, now it's your turn. It's like, and he's all messed up and everything like that. I think I appreciate. So in that sense, I mean, this had its sense of catharsis for me towards the end, that they stand triumphant over their torturers,
Very much so. We're going to take a quick break while I play some promos. I'll probably play something from William or from Derek. Give me a minute. We'll be right back to continue our show.
We'll be back with much more fun. Now don't you change that channel, son.
I hope he's home. Why does it sound like I'm using a phone in the UK?
I told you never to call me again.
Yeah, I know. And modern science has yet to create a device to measure how much I don't care. Look, I'm getting the trailer for this year's JLMay together, and I assumed I had to make you a part of it since you're always in everybody's trailer or something.
Well, look at you, leading this year's JLMay. Somebody's wearing his big boy pants. So, what's the theme?
I sent you an email like a month ago.
Like I even pay attention to anything you send me.
Countdown to Infinite Crisis.
Infinite Crisis?
No, Countdown to Infinite Crisis.
I'm not following.
Shocking. The theme this year, I'm going to, like I'm talking to a child, the theme this year is Countdown to Infinite Crisis. I thought it was a fascinating time period in DC's history, so a bunch of us are getting together to talk about the various specials and miniseries and crossovers that led up to Infinite Crisis. It's the event before the event. The whole thing is going to kick off on April 30th, 2020 with a special episode of Views from the Long Box covering the Countdown to Infinite Crisis 80-page giant, and from there a whole bunch of shows that I will be adding in post-production will discuss these previously mentioned miniseries and crossover issues.
And people actually agreed to this?
Shockingly, yes.
Well, it's probably a good thing that you're going to cover Countdown to Infinite Crisis instead of the Countdown series, because that was a train wreck.
Yeah, actually, that was my thinking, too. Now, are you going to help me with this trailer or not?
Fine. I will help you with your little trailer.
Good. Don't worry, by the way. There won't be any dates for you to get wrong.
I hate you so much.
JLMay 2020. Countdown to Infinite Crisis. The event before the event. This podcast crossover kicks off on April 30th, 2020. On Views from the Long Box, located at www.fortressofbaileytude.com. From there, the event will spread out through the podcasting sphere on Aquaman and Firestorm, the Fire and Water Podcast, Robin, Everybody Loves the Drake, Pop Culture Affidavit, It All Comes Back to Superman, the Fanholes Podcast, Justice's First Dawn, the Birds of Prey Podcast, Married with Comics, the Coffee and Comics Podcast, the Longbox Crusade, Task Force X, Relatively Geeky Presents, Wonder Woman Warrior for Peace, and the Dr. DC Podcast.
This be some spread. Gambit not gonna be playing solitaire tonight.
Gambit, what are you doing over here? Talking to yourself in the third person. And what's all this food?
Oh, Professor, Gambit have plans tonight. Once Cher shows up, Gambit gonna wine and dine her. Then we gonna listen to Fanholes, the pop culture podcast made for the fans, by the fans.
Fanholes? I'll not have my school turned into a den of debauchery and science fiction trivia. No, Gambit. You'll just have to perform your obscene mating rituals elsewhere.
Uh-oh, sound like the professor getting a little cranky. Gambit think it time for you to go to bed.
What? What are you? Ow! Unhand me at once! Unhand me, you swamp-fed ignoramus!
Relax, mon ami. Gambit just gonna tuck you in real nice.
X-Men, emergency, help! Curse you, Fanholes!
And don't mess with the Fanholes.
Weekly content on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and fanholespodcast.blogspot.com.
When it soon my eyes become
Baby, I compare you to a kiss from... That damn song is stuck in my head now. Thanks a lot, Pete Holmes. My mind!
Aquaman and Firestorm fighting crime together. Soak 'em down or burn 'em up. No one does it better. Whenever you find trouble, they'll always be there to catch them in a bubble or even torch their hair. Stand for truth and justice in sea, on land, and air. Firestorm and Aquaman, they make a super pair.
The Fire and Water Podcast, celebrating Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas, and Firestorm, the Nuclear Man.
Available weekly on Aquaman Shrine, Firestorm Fan, and on iTunes and Stitcher.
I'm one of your hosts, the Irredeemable Shag, here to talk about Firestorm. Along with me is my co-host Rob Kelly, here to talk about some guy that talks to fish.
Really? You're going to pull this crap during the promo? Bad enough I have to put up with your shenanigans every week, but...
We are green from head to toe. Now we go back to the show.
And welcome back. Hope you check out those shows. Like I said, it's JLMay. It's going to be a great crossover. And Derek, he puts on some great shows, especially the Thunderbolts ones they do. I'm a huge Thunderbolts fan, so I definitely love that show.
Thanks, Aaron.
Enough waxing your car for right now. Let's go ahead and continue. Let's move on to issue 4. This is the one with the cover of the Secret Six, leaving that exploding building or whatever it is, the giant globe behind them. Kind of like a Metropolis. Kind of reminds me a little bit, now that I think about it, of, what was it, Action Comics 700, I think. The Fall of Metropolis, where the Daily Planet's exploding and the globe's coming
globe
down.
And Superman's trying to hold it from rolling all over the citizens of Metropolis. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, now that I think about it. I'll go on the story. So we get introduced to Enclave M, which it's labeled as Bell Rev's bad brother, even though this is its first appearance. Again, they're trying to make it seem like it's been a place that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
As a Suicide Squad fan, I don't know if I like the fact that they're creating a place that's supposed to be better than Bell Rev. Because, Bell Rev's supposed to be...
This is the Carnage prison to Bell Rev's Venom or whatever,
Well, to me, it's kind of like when they introduced... Going over to Marvel for a minute, when they introduced the Red Hulk. And they kept, just show how bad he was. They had him knock out Utoa the Watcher and just doing more and more ridiculous stunts just to make him look even better than Banner.
Yeah.
They lost me at that. It's kind of the same way here. They introduced this prison, and they're telling us that it's the bad brother to Bell Rev. But what have they done that shows it?
I do want Naughty by Nature to do a cover of RFG, like that'd be fun.
Shit. Get out with LPP. Yeah, you know me. Get out with LPP. Yeah, you know me. Get out with LPP. Yeah, you know me. Who's down with LPP? Every last one.
RFG, yeah, you know me. Like that made me laugh.
Then we get the new Jack being introduced here. And he's like, the real flush gang. Am I correct? Ace Highway, man. I'm the new Jack. You see the new flying cards, man. RFG, yeah, you know me.
What do you think about this? Like, because it seems to insinuate like every high official, has some kind of hostage situation or some kind of blackmail thing over their heads. So they're gonna not only release Jack from prison, but that they're going to open up all their prisons when they get the signal. Like this kind of reminds me of like the sketchy morals I think I saw in things like Devil's Advocate, where they have like the people that it's like the Joker is not the one to blame for all these poison stamps, but yet there are these other people that conceivably help the Joker escape or help the Joker, for whatever reason. It could be that their kid is held hostage, and then you're like, oh, well, what else is the person going to do? Or it could just be, they got paid a crap ton of money to look the other way or something like that at Arkham Asylum when, somebody else slips on a poison pie or something like that. But it's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, this warden, like, yeah, his family is being threatened, but it seems like I don't know. He pretty much caves in right away. Like, so that I think is, I don't know. It's weird. Like you can kind of understand it, but then you kind of wonder, like, is there somebody out there that, stands up to it? It's like that hostage situation. Like, do you drop your gun or do you just find the right moment to shoot the other guy in the head so they release the hostage? And it's like, a lot of these people tend to drop the gun and then the hostage gets shot and then they get shot and then you're left with nothing. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like they're, obviously like the society, the dark supervillain union has all these guys' numbers. So they're clearly strong arming them into getting what they want done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing, actually. That's why, and that's part of my comment about how they're saying this is Bel Rev's big bad brother or bad brother without showing us why. And seeing how they're comparing it to Bel Rev, which makes me automatically think of what would Amanda Waller do if a prisoner was
right. And Amanda Waller would tell this guy to stick it up his ass.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. And yeah, so that's kind of why it bothers me that they're trying to make this seem like it's better than Bel Rev.
Right.
Like you said, the warden gives right away, where Amanda would be like, you know what? How about if I take the rest of the Royal Flush Gang and I shove them right up your ass?
Yeah, exactly. I could see her just pressing the trigger and just being like, "Boop." And then like all the other guys behind Jack, like all the Royal Flush Gang's heads pop, and he's just like, "Now tell me again, what was you gonna do to me? What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do to my kids? What are you gonna do to my sister? Bring it on! I'm here." Yeah. So that's, and I agree. Yeah, the warden gives it rather easily for being in charge of the bad brother to Bel Rev. Yeah, Amanda wouldn't have taken that. She would have put Jack in his place.
Yeah.
And I guess for the purposes of the story, they needed Jack to get out. But if they want this to be the bad brother of Bel Rev, I think they should have handled it a different way. Maybe bribed a guard to let him out, or not walking up to the warden and threatening him.
Maybe this should have been like the little kid brother of Bel Rev who wasn't quite up to snuff, right? Like,
I agree. Yeah, you say this is a task for as a Suicide Squad podcast. So yeah, I'm definitely, if someone's going to challenge Bel Rev and Amanda Waller, I'm definitely going to stand up to the plate and say, wait a minute, no, this isn't better than Bel Rev. He's not better than Amanda.
Yeah.
Amanda would have beat the crap out of Jack.
Yeah. I think Amanda would take no shit. Yeah.
Most definitely. And I'm not quite sure there on that last page where we leave them, that hand signal he's doing. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. Where he's like, some friends will pick me up by an hour. New possibilities might take you open those gates. I'm not quite sure what that scene's supposed to, with his hands there, supposed to represent. Am I missing something?
It's supposed to be the society, I think. Like that.
Okay.
He's saying, wait.
Some friends.
I'm like, it's supposed to be like my friends. And look, I'm making the little S sign because I'm a member of the society, bro.
Right.
Like that.
I just thought that was a little strange.
Yeah. No. I get it. It's not really obvious. Like, I think maybe I need a Chris Claremont, like caption to tell me, dude, in a society, he's totally intimidated. Or what? But Amanda Waller wouldn't have been intimidated by that.
No, yeah.
What you doing with your hands, boy? Get the fuck out of here!
What are you doing? Throwing gang signs? What's going on here? What's this white boy know about gang signs?
Get the fuck out of here with that.
I grew up in Chicago. What are you talking about, gang signs?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I guess enough griping about Enclave M. Let's go ahead and move on to the actual story itself, where we get as I talked about in synopsis, we get our Secret Six camping out, watching one of the society's headquarters as they prepare to break in.
This came first, but it reminds me of how, like, in the Young Justice TV series, they would have like their stealth mode costumes, and it's like they're still kind of wearing the superhero spandex look, but then it's all kind of toned down and everything. So with the exception of maybe a few reds or a few whites, for the most part, it's all their traditional costumes, but they're all in black for the most part. So that's kind of, I don't know. I guess to me, I'm like, that's a cool look. Like I dig it. It's like Deadshot almost looks like Snake Eyes or something for a minute.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I forget timeline-wise, but I know X-Force did something similar.
Oh, okay.
Or Marvel, Wolverine and a lot of other characters.
I want to say that was in like 2007 or 2008.
Was that after this? Okay.
This would have been a couple years before that. But yeah, they had their own kind of Wetworks Black Ops X-Force group too.
Yeah, and they all wore costumes similar to their regular costumes, but darker.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this came first, but I didn't want to swear to that because again, it's a loss. I've read it.
I'm positive that this came first.
And here we are in issue 4, and we finally get Scandal donning her uniform. And I like this where again they don't realize how powerful Scandal is, so Catman's telling her, Catman, you can stay behind if you like. She said, no, I'm going with you. And Deadshot and Catman's looking at her like, I'm okay with that. As she's changing in front of him.
Yeah.
I was like, naked girl. Very nice. And again, it's about the team ready to go. Then we switch back over to the society again with them watching the video of Deadshot threatening them. They just haven't fallen down yet. And again, Psycho's still on his rant about, they threaten us, they die, right? That's freshman math. What do you think about this scene with Luther and all them talking?
This, I think, is the moment I was talking about, like specifically where it looks like Talia's, his girl Friday or something, because she literally comes in with a clipboard and is like, Luther, the recruits are meeting in room 4. He's like, excellent, my dear. And he's got a cup of fucking coffee. Like, I'm just
here's your side reports.
Like, what? Like, I don't understand. I don't know. I kind of was wondering, like, I thought they were introducing all these guys to be like red shirts or something, like, the new recruits or something. Like, I thought for sure, like, they were being introduced to get capped later, and I don't think they were. I don't know. Am I not remembering right or something? Like,
as we look at the CB, I'm like you. They introduce you to Jongler, Split Shot, Lagomorph, Hindenburg, and Tremor.
I mean, unless like I said, it's been a while since I read all the tie-ins and everything. I mean, unless Firestorm beats them up later or something. But
yeah, I in this book here, where they introduced me, I don't think this is their introduction, and they may show up in a group shot later on, but they don't really do anything with this.
Yeah.
And I read most of the tie-ins because, again, at this time I was buying almost every single Marvel and DC comic out there, and I don't recall them showing up anywhere else. But again, it's been a few years ago, so I maybe been 15 years ago, so I may be forgetting something.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about, if I have one complaint about this series, it's what they're doing with Talia. Because, I don't see Talia letting herself be reduced to, here's your reports, Mr. Luther.
Yeah, like, I know it's kind of silly, but it's like, why is Talia holding a clipboard? Like, I don't understand that. Like, doesn't she have people to hold the clipboard? Like, I don't understand. Like, why? Anyway, I know that's kind of nitpicky and weird, but I don't understand why she's holding a clipboard.
I don't know if it's so nitpick, because again, it's very much against it, or me anyways, and apparently you, it's very much against her character to be the secretary of the team.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have had Mercy or someone like that to, fill the new recruits and to carry a clipboard. And here's your reports, Mr. Luther. Because, that's very much.
What's the point of them double dare girls if they don't come in with clips and deliver coffee? I don't understand. They got people for that.
Again, their position is something entirely different. That's a entirely different comic. It's part of the vertical line.
Their position means they would probably spill the coffee and mess up the clipboard.
Let me clean that coffee up for you, Mr. Luther.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Let's quickly move on before I get in trouble.
Sounds good.
So we get the team breaking in. I like Ragdoll going through the sewer system and coming out the toilets.
This is one of those things where you need a special scratch and sniff version of the issue or whatever. Like,
see, I was going to sound like this is an actual movie with someone crawling out. They kind of created someone crawling out of the toilet like that. It's kind of like a what's that one horror movie about the girl coming out of the TV?
Oh, The Ring.
The Ring, kind of, the girl crying out of the TV. Same kind of thing.
Thinking, what's that movie? Isn't it Ghoulies where they come out of the toilet or something? Like, he's pulling Ghoulies. Right?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Oh God, yes. Yeah. I wish you could see this, Father. It's beautiful. No difference, masterpiece.
But on the right side, the Sting has good hygiene and he's washing his hands. So
that's one good thing.
Way to wash your hands, like, good job, buddy.
And as he's crawling through the sewer, we get, the parademon talking to Catman. It's a clown dies, Catman. Yeah, you okay, me, I know. How'd you know I was going to say that? Again, it's a serious book, but there's a lot of comedy aspects to this.
Yeah.
And that's what I like when, they take it serious, because it's not, Batman 66 material, but they're not taking themselves too seriously like the DC movies have been doing.
Yeah.
They want to crack a joke and, put a little fun into it. And then we get the team breaking in, fighting the Queen Bee and her group. And I like they're on I forgot, I think it's like story page 11 or so, where the Hive are running out, and then we get Catman standing there. Evening, I'd like y'all to be my backup. And he jumps out with the Deadshot standing behind him, just letting him loose. Hi guys, this ain't personal.
Between the two of them, they're John Wicking all the Hive agents.
And again, being a huge Deadshot Suicide Squad fan, I love seeing Deadshot being that badass.
And that's a good way to establish his badassery, because nobody's going to get upset over a bunch of cannon fodder like the Hive soldiers getting shot up, but you also are establishing like how effective Deadshot can be with, multiple kills in a single panel and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and as they're fighting, again, you wouldn't see this in real life because people are too busy fighting and you'd be out of breath. But I like Deadshot and Catman talking. He's like, Deadshot's like, funny, how can you care even about someone like her? You're like, what? Her, Cheshire. Heard you set off a nuke. You don't know she did that. It's like their interplay. They're fighting all these bad guys, these Hive people.
Yeah, here we go. This will be a shout out to Shag Matthews, but I imagine that Catman and Deadshot's relationship is a lot like Mike Donovan and Ham Tyler from V. Like, they don't always see eye to eye. They kind of have a begrudging like bro-spect for one another, but if they need to come to blows, as they will, they totally like have an all-out, knuckle drag out, up fight and everything. So yeah, that's kind of how I was seeing it.
Oh, very much so. I loved V. That was a great TV movies. I loved them.
This is Deadshot's way of being like, Gooder, if you let them live, they're gonna breed, and Catman's like, but it's my buddy,
Very much so.
Catman's like, the truck stays. Yeah, so.
And then we get Black Adam and the Royal Flush Gang running towards the teleporter.
Man,
and again, here
I'm like, now that I think about it, like Mark Singer back in the Beastmaster days, man, he would have made a hell of a Fanora Love God Catman.
Oh yeah,
he would have been awesome.
Oh yeah, Beastmaster, another great movie I love. Yeah, I love Beastmaster, and yeah, he would have been great as Cat back, this version of Catman back then or something, or if we could time travel back to the 80s and bring Mark Singer now. Yeah, right, you're Catman. Go for it.
Yeah. Do it. Get Dr. Doom's time platform from Alan Middleton, and we'll do it. We'll totally do it.
Yeah, the professional right over to borrow your time platform.
Yeah, we gotta bring Mark Singer to be Catman in this movie. Me and Aaron are pitching. It'll be awesome.
And then you've got the obvious. Mine just turned off. The midget from Game of Thrones is Dr. Psycho.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think a lot of people wanted. What is it? Why can't I think of his name now? Dinklage, Peter Dinklage.
There you go.
Would be a very good Dr. Psycho, definitely.
Oh, very much so. He's got that look. Besides being a midget or whatever, little person, whatever the proper term is. And then we get where the Secret Six finds out the Society's plan that they're going to mind wipe the Justice League of America, all the superheroes. Deadshot's like, good riddance. I say let him. And Catman's like, you're not thinking, Floyd. You really want to hand over absolute power to the Society? And again, so a little, I guess, moral, in quotes, discussion about who would be better off, I guess, running things, either the Justice League or the Society. And again, here we get Parademon, again, upset that he thinks Ragdoll is dead, so he attacks him. Your stupid plan got the clown killed. He was an artist, you lowly scum. And then we get Ragdoll coming up. I'm not dead, Parademon. Neither am I, at least, humorous. I was going to place that collarbone anyways. Again, more of the comedy that Gale wrote into here.
Yeah, there's some insight, too, where he when he thinks that Ragdoll is dead, he kind of says, on Apocalypse, there is no humor. You should not have let him die. It kind of establishes why he's so fond of Ragdoll, because he's probably the first being that he's found humorous. You know what I mean? That
right.
Maybe has brought him a small modicum of joy rather than, I guess the quote unquote anti-life of Darkseid and Granny Goodness, right? Like, so
right.
That's and then there's kind of a tease where you're like, they kind of hint at like somebody is powering this reactor or whatever, but you don't quite know who it is right away. So that's
right.
That's kind of, that sort of, entices you to keep reading and figure out like, wait, this is somebody important. Like, who is this?
Yeah, so we get Black Adam and the Royal Flush Gang materializing. The Royal Flush Gang, I'm a big fan of the original Royal Flush Gang. This group looks like DC's attempt to do a movie of them. Very gang looking.
Well, they almost look like dreadnoughts. Like they look kind of like the Jersey Shore version of the Royal Flush Gang. It's like they all kind of look like, I don't know. The only thing they need is a Snooki card or something back there. But yeah, they definitely look kind of odd. But again, I guess my hope and or thought was much like those other characters they introduced. I figure that these guys, like, they'd be good cannon fodder to me. A way to kill the Royal Flush Gang without killing, like, the classic Royal Flush Gang, so that's kind of what I was thinking they were there for. But yeah, man, the king totally looks like Ripper from G.I. Joe. Yeah.
Oh, very much so. Now that you mention it, I'm like, oh God, yes, you're right. And then we finally meet the Power Source. We get Firestorm again, one of my two favorite characters.
He's like, hey guys,
name's Firestorm. We're looking forward to a little chats that she locked in the entertainment field. And then we get the building exploding behind us. The team runs away. And again, like I said, if you look over at the Fire and Water's JLMay contribution, they're going to be talking about Firestorm. It's Firestorm 17 and 18, which deals with Firestorm being captured and his escape.
This is also interesting because, like, you're mentioning like a tie-in to one of our podcast buddies, and it's also going to be followed up in that Firestorm comic. But this era, like, there is no editorial footnote. Like, you'd think that would be something that would be operative in something like this, like to find out what happens, to read more about Firestorm if you were teased and enticed by this. If you want to see more than Firestorm just unleashing nuclear hell on this base, like go read this issue of Firestorm. But they don't do that. There is no editorial footnote.
Yeah, I agree. There should be. I don't know. Again, I'm a little biased because I say I love Firestorm. I was reading the Firestorm book. I don't know how I feel. I mean, it doesn't show exactly what happens, but it does show that the base gets destroyed. So it kind of wraps everything up as far as the big scheme of things. But yeah, I think it would have been better if they would have said, for more on this or more details, see Firestorm issue 17 and 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's a good read also.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt. I mean,
like I said, getting your cross promotion, because if someone wasn't reading the entire line, because again, I was reading the entire line, so of course I read that book. But if you weren't reading the entire line, you wouldn't know to check out the Firestorm book unless you happen to see it on the stand with the tie-in logo on it. Then you may, I may need to pick that up. So yeah, I think they kind of missed out something there. But yeah, for the longest time, they didn't care for. It seems like they didn't care to put thought balloons in or references to other books.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times, all the books have references to, instead of the actual issues, they refer to the trade paperbacks.
Huh. Yeah.
Again, being an old school fan, I don't know if I like that or not.
Yeah.
But that's another story entirely. We're back at the House of Secrets, where we get Cheshire and Thomas Blake in bed. And again, we get a little bit more of Thomas Blake's transformation from a loser to the cat god.
That's a pretty good post-coital panel. That works. That establishes what has occurred without being too gratuitous.
Right. I like that when it starts out. I take back what I said, Blake. You're definitely male. After here, Jade, I've been expecting that for some time now. She lets him know that the main reason she's sleeping with him is because she wants to have his baby. Any other thoughts on this section?
I have some thoughts on the whole, make a replacement baby thing, but I may save that for some of the later issues.
And I do, and we were just talking about how there was no editor footnote about checking out Firestorm issue 7. There is an editor's note here about issue 1.
Of this
letter that This title. Yeah.
In case you're totally asleep at the wheel and you didn't read the first 3 issues, this is a reference to issue 1. But
you came in issue 4 of a 6-issue miniseries. Check out the first issue.
But as to the tie-in that we want to sell, we left that little thing off. So you can't say they weren't doing it. They were. They just weren't.
Doing the wrong spots.
Yeah.
Because presumably this is a 6-issue miniseries. If you read issue 4, you probably got 1 through 3. It's especially since this came out in the 2000s when there was comic shops. I mean, now if this was back in the 70s, when you had to buy them off the newsstand and maybe you'd see one issue, maybe you wouldn't see the next issue. Sure, that might be a nice reference. But yeah, seeing how, and they're writing for the trade, so they're planning on putting this on a trade, I'm sure. Yeah, it's the same miniseries. It seems odd they refer to the first issue here and not refer to the Firestorm.
Yeah.
In the other scene, it's just odd the choices they made. Any other thoughts about this issue?
Nah. No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
And then we move on to the 5th issue. We have Catman and Deadshot fighting on the cover, as we talked about briefly. This starts out with Catman fighting Major Mala.
A little bit of rematch, like what I like to call a round 2, like Catman gets to have his round 2 fight with Monsieur Mala and look better this time. So kind of an apology, I think.
And he does get some help from Ragdoll. But yeah, he does do a better showing this time. Yeah. And then Cheshire gives Deadshot Petsabin on his bullets to help take him out as Deadshot takes off Major Mala's ear. And then we get the team fighting some second and thirds. They got who is that? Tweedledee and Tweedledum from the Bat books, and the Madmen from, I believe that was Blue Beetle, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
The Madmen were, yeah. And again, and then there's they're sitting there talking to Tweedledee and Tweedledum. He's like, "Well, I'd love to help. I'm the cooperative, No, he's a filthy liar. Shoot him. I'm the nice one. Nobody doesn't like Tweedledee." Yeah, I just like the bickering between the two brothers back and forth there. And this we find out that they're looking for the identity of Mockingbird. And later on, this is going to come back where the Parademon shows them they have 10 mother boxes for New Generous Soldiers.
That's Chekhov's 10 mother boxes.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I was debating whether to make that comment or not. But you made it for me, so thank you. And then we get the back over to the Society headquarters where Calculator's bringing the Furious Five? It's not right.
Is it the Fearsome Five?
Fearsome Five. I like that. He's like, "Thank you all for coming. Now, which one of you's in charge?" And Simon's like, "Well, gee, Lex, aren't you going to try to guess?" He's like, "Fine, Simon. You're the brightest fellow. The bright fellow who named the quartet the Fearsome Five, then." There it is, Fearsome Five. So he sends them after their first target, which they don't show us who the target is at this point. He's like, your team is to target this man. And Mammoth's like, "Solid or liquid?" He's like, "What? You want the body intact or you want stumps?" No stumps, please.
Non-stumps, please.
Again, it's a serious book, but they are able to fit this humor in there. I like it.
Yeah.
It's right in my alley. And again, they're being very vague who they're targeting at this point. Here's a picture of this one. Man, we need for the other targets. Yeah, Deep Space is the best place for that guy. And then we get Vandal Savage telling Luther that he quits the team. He wants nothing to do with them. And now he's saying that the rest of they're talking about what if the rest of the villains are no longer afraid of the Justice League and what happened. He's like, well, if the Justice League's no longer going to be our boogeyman, we'll have to create our blood and circuses elsewhere. With a picture of the Secret Six on the screen. Any thoughts about that before I move on?
I find it weird. Like, was Vandal Savage part of the Society? Like, it seems like they're trying to recruit him as a colleague or something, or I don't know. And then the idea that they're hunting his daughter and he'd be a member of it seems weird too. Like, so I I don't know. Like, I get that since it's Alexander Luthor, maybe that can account for why he treats Talia and Vandal Savage the way he does, because he's not quite in the know as much as he should be. But I don't know. It seems weird. Like I get that Vandal Savage is like, don't dismiss me, you know. Like, you know, I don't want to be, you know, just put on hold or whatever. But I don't know. It just seems weird that I don't know if he's just entertaining the notion of forming an alliance with them, or
he says, "I resign from your society."
Yeah,
which makes me think maybe he didn't know that his daughter's a part of the group that they're after.
Then now that he does that
and that's why he's resigning.
Okay.
Because he tells him, you know, don't ask why, don't contact me again for any reason. So I'm wondering.
So yeah, he doesn't want to give up the intel, but that's why he's resigning. That makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was part of the group, and then he realized his daughter's scandal was one of the targets. At a certain point, he's like, you know what, I can't be a party to this, and so that's why he resigns. He's like, don't ask why, don't contact me again. And then we move out to the space sector 1729, where we get Sinestro fighting Lady Quark. Again, another refugee, if you will, from the Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah. Refugee from the Starman Manhunter podcast hour. Right?
yeah, and as this issue is also in the Legion.
Yeah.
The acronym Legion, which we talked about over on my Armageddon 2001 crossover Head Speaks.
Yeah.
The Quark showing up all over the place. But again, yeah, Lady Quark, yeah, she was one of the refugees from a no longer existing Earth over the the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So we get Sinestro capturing her to take her back, and they're back at the House of Secrets where the team's returning. And where I talked about in the synopsis where Cheshire's like, hungry? I may be for myself and your litter, Thomas. Cheshire, just so you know, I want that to happen. Not what that mean precisely. Just what you think it means, Jade. She's like, I don't believe you. I wouldn't start nitty goodies. And then Deadshot's like, I knew there was a reason I liked it, Blake. Then when you take her down, I'll bring popcorn. Again, I love the dialogue between them and him telling her that he's not going to let her mother his children.
It's really cool how the body language and even the way they draw sort of the wrinkles on the mask, like even though his face is completely covered, you can almost tell like Floyd's having a smile and a chuckle under there. Like I think that's really cool that they can that with a face, you know, a mask as bland, or I guess as obfuscating as Deadshot's is, that he still can have this kind of almost jovial expression. Like that's kind of neat.
No, Dell and was Wade. Yeah, they did a great job on Deadshot there, like conveying. Yeah, he got a full face man. He doesn't even have eye holes, so you can see his eyes or anything, or a mouth hole. Completely covered, but you can tell if you hear up the dialogue, you can tell that he's
enjoying the shit.
Kind of having a good laugh, yeah. And then we continue on. We're back at the Society Tower, and we still get Dr. Cycle. Yes, blast it, kill our enemies.
I'm like, Talia's back in her sweatpants and t-shirt, as opposed to the really nice purple blouse she had on in the other scene. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Again, but other than that, I think most of the characters are pretty much spot on. They act like they should be acting. And you may question Luthor, but again, once we find out that it's not actually Luthor, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, you can be a little more forgiving for the discrepancies, because they were probably hints more so than him being out of character.
Yeah, and then we get the first mystery guest they wanted, which was Pariah. Again, the other survivor of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which they reference here. And Pariah is kind of hinting at there's someone else out there. So Prion knows of Alexander Luthor. He just doesn't know where Alexander's at. He doesn't realize that he's talking to the other Luthor yet. In that last panel there, where that close up on Prion's face, his eyes, it looks very sad. It's very, very well drawn, I think. It's just a real close up of his face, and he looks, I don't know if depressed is the right word, but he looks very sad there. I don't know.
Yeah, he looks sad. There's a strong sense of concern. Yeah.
Concern, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then we get the Mockingbird letting him know that he knows what they were after. And this is where Catman stands up and says, I have a counteroffer, a suicide run. Which, again, being a fan of Suicide Squad and this being a Task Force X podcast, I like the phrasing there. The suicide run, us against the society. If we succeed, we walk. Those who want to. We owe you nothing. If we die, you find yourself a new six, but our families go free. And when Mockingbird fades away, he's like, agreed. And may replacements be made of sterner material. So, half the time that this was going on, did you realize who this was yet, or were you still in the dark also? As far as Mockingbird,
I think they had already been discussing it on like the message boards, and I'm pretty sure that Luthor was one of the top like speculations. But I don't remember if people thought that Mockingbird was Alexander Luthor and the Society Luthor was the real Luthor, and
right.
I'm not sure if they knew that it was swapped yet, but I think it had been brandied about, so it wasn't something that entirely escaped my thoughts as I was reading this.
Yeah, see, I don't think I was on any message boards really at this point, so I don't think I knew who it was. I thought it looked a little bit like, because the ears looked almost pointy.
The first Brainwave, it's like he kind of looks a little like Savannah, and he's got the glasses and everything, and then his son was also called Brainwave, but he was one of the Infinity Inc. members. Like
right.
That might be who you're thinking of.
Half a second. This makes for great podcasting, me looking things up.
Yeah, there's a lot of bald guys in DC Comics. That's our lot in life. We got to find the right guy.
It was Multiman.
Oh, okay.
He was part of the Justice League Antarctica.
Okay.
And what was the team of his name? His team name? Justice League Antarctica. Justice League.
Yeah.
He looked a little to me like Multiman a little bit.
Multiman. Okay.
Ears almost pointed, and
yeah,
that was my thoughts. I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, the only thing I would think of though is because this editorial reign seemed to be the polite way is they were not on board with the Giffen DeMatteis era. Like you'd wonder if they would either revamp him or if they would just shoot him in the head. So
right. Yeah, very much so. Then we move on to the next scene. That's where we find out that Scandal is Vandal's daughter. And we also get from the cover, the confrontation between Catman and Deadshot, where, Catman's telling him that I find out who you are, that he heard, he's heard the prop of the helicopter, smelled the stink of Deathstroke cigarettes. Came back, it was too late, the party was all killed. And then he said he smelled the cigarettes, but Deathstroke quit smoking 3 years ago. So it kind of lets him know how he figured it out and where, and that, it was his brand of cigarettes, he's been around him. Like, I knew you did it, I just didn't want to admit it. So what do you think about this section of the little battle, the battle between our heroes?
I like it. It's a good fight. I mean, if they're trying to establish that Catman's the alpha, I mean, he's also pissed because Deadshot took out his lions, and they definitely have a good, down and dirty, drag out fight and everything. Like I Deadshot, like, kind of like their conversation, for the most part, I think Catman is fighting him like a man, except for smashing his face into the back of a computer when he's not looking for it. But outside of that, like they're supposedly fighting mano a mano, right. Deadshot's, hitting below the belt and everything like you'd expect. but ultimately, like he owns up to it and says he did it, and you might even say like that ties into his death wish, right? Like he's hoping Catman kills him, right? Because he's got that personality complex that he's always had, where he's always looking for a way to sort of death by fill in the blank type mentality. Like that's always been part of his mindset, so he's just kind of poking the bear like he normally does.
And that immediately as they stop fighting, that's when they lead into Cheshire revealing that she's actually the traitor because the society is attacking him, so they have to stop fighting. And Kevin's like, get the 6 of us together, make a plan. Cheshire's like, 6 of us? Oh, darling, I'm afraid you just counted by 1. See, I call them here with a tracking device. Oh, wouldn't we be kind enough to inform Mockingbird? And then we have another really cool 2-page spread of the Injustice League, or the Secret Society villains attacking the House of Mystery.
Yeah, this, at least here, Dr. Psycho looks a lot more like he does in the H.D. Peters stuff. He's got like the tux and the little, rose lapel and everything like that. I mean, most of these characters are pretty recognizable. The only thing I was trying to figure out is that not Captain Nazi and Ubermensch or something? Because I'm like, I don't know. I think it's Ubermensch, but I'm not really sure. Like, because I'm like, oh, you got another Nazi, but now he's bald. So I'm like, I think that's who it is, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% positive on that one because I'm not as familiar with those stories. But yeah,
it seems like they should have colored him differently. It's like the colorist got confused and colored Ubermensch like Captain Nazi, I think. And
your Nazis kind of hard to tell one apart from the other.
Yeah, so that's my take on it. But there's some characters here that are introduced for the first time in this 2-page spread.
Right.
Mr. Terrible, who's in the bottom right, the fair play on his leather jacket. He's got foul play, and so he's like the anti Mr. Terrific or whatever. And you've got the Fiddler's replacement, which is a lady named Virtuoso. So you can see her with the fiddle in the forefront, not too far behind Mr. Terrible,
Right next to Jermala, who's got the bandage around his head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like Sting, and I think that's Amygdala. I don't know. And the original Ragdoll, the Ragdoll's father in this, Comic Skull.
Right.
It looks like King Shark and Gigant, Amazo and the Humpty Dumpty, Torpedo, the Toyman, Knockout, Amos Fortune, Solomon Grundy, Bolt. It looks like I think that's Black Spider in the background, Weather Wizard, and Scarecrow and Deathstroke. Yeah.
Yep. So again, another great panel. The villains are heroes in quotes, are protagonists.
Yeah, they're now. I guess this is the point at the end where I guess Cheshire makes them have the hard choice, because it's like Floyd wants to shoot her for betraying them, but then she brings up the fact that they had relations and that he might be killing their unborn child, so that puts Catman in a pickle, and even Floyd is kind of like, look, Mockingbird has all this all this dirt on us. Like, did you want your daughter Leanne to die? And clearly she does not care, because she figures she's got another
replacement.
She's got another bun in the oven, I guess, or whatever. Like, that's her attitude, which is weird because, like, I mean, it hasn't been that long. They don't know. Like, I don't know. It seems weird, but yeah, I guess for dramatic purposes, dramatic license.
That and the problem I have with that is that whenever she's appeared in the Titans, she's always seemed concerned about her daughter, about Leanne, and maybe it's just because that's the only kid she has, so maybe that's why she's so concerned. And if she has another, she wouldn't. I don't know. I just don't know if that's quite syncs up with Cheshire of old.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could argue like she was put under a significant amount of stress and trials, and she did not live up to, obviously she's not heroic figure, right? So you could argue she just didn't live up to those high standards or whatever, you know? I mean, you might say she's concerned as a mother, but she's never been a real mother to that character.
True.
Ever, right? So
right.
I don't know. Like, I suppose all that's debatable, right? Like, you make a good case for why she should care and not just figure she can just make a new one, which seems like really awful. But then again, like she murders people with poison all day long, so she is an awful person, right?
Right.
So, I don't know.
And she's had a nuke off once, so yeah. No, she's not a great person to begin with. So I don't know. And think about it. And then there are people out there, sadly, that like that. That's I can make another one.
Yeah.
It's all right. Again, not great people, and and it's supposed to be a supervillain, so she's not supposed to be a great person to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this issue?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the fight is really good between Catman and Blake. Like that's that, brings things to a head. And of course it amps up the stakes that you've got them, the society about to encroach on their headquarters, right? Like that's cool because you sort of set up that this is the House of Secrets, and now they're banging down the doors and breaching the House of Secrets. So they're really at the final stretch as we're coming on to the 6th issue.
Yeah. Speaking of the 6th issue, then we have the one with one of the Luthors on the front with the two teams behind them. So again, we start out on the outside of the House of Secrets with Deathstroke and Dr. Psycho looking down at the house. And then we get Cheshire inside talking to the team, and then the bravado. The taste is quite extraordinary. And then again, we get another outside shot showing the team lined up, getting ready to barge into the house to fight our protagonists. We get Knockout. Deathstroke is telling Knockout that she needs a strong hand. She needs to take care of everything while he takes another force around the side of the house. Again, so we get the reveal here. What do you think about these first couple pages? Any thoughts on any of this?
Well, they're trying to establish, like with the little ellipses, like that they're trying to give you a hint that she's maybe not who she appears to be, or she has that moment of hesitation. So that's
right.
That's a clue, I think, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And then of course you're back into the sort of the nitty gritty with Blake and Floyd. Like they're in this almost sort of Mexican standoff in their own way, and they have to sort of resolve it. But the Scandal can't turn to Mockingbird because he's not signaling them anymore, and so they're kind of left on their own.
Yeah, and again, just an issue or so ago, Catman was telling he's willing to kill her and the baby if need be, and now he's realized it's his offspring, it's going to be his kid if she is pregnant. He's willing to fight for her, and I guess that's kind of a realistic thing there, because no matter how. If I'm going to say most guys, not all, but most guys, I think if you get a woman pregnant, you're going to feel some form of wanting to protect that child, no matter what you may think of the mother or her getting pregnant. Once you realize that you may be a father, that changes a lot about you. And I could see him doing a 180 from his earlier, don't start naming buddies yet, to I'll kill you if I need to, Deadshot.
I mean, I think maybe Catman being the bestest, being this Batman, Cat God, Fanora guy, like he's going to prove to care more about the child than Cheshire would in this turn of events. So that's again, escalating or elevating his not only just his sense of Fanora and his sense to be an action hero, but also maybe his sense of morality as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, especially since they're trying to pit him as the hero of the story. They want him to have some heroistic, is that a word? Qualities to make him more likable, I guess is the proper word. And then we get Luthor and the Calculator find they've lost control of their satellites, and no one recognizes. And again, I guess this is another clue because Calculator shows them Oracle's symbol, and this Luthor doesn't recognize it. I'm wondering if the other Luthor would have recognized it if it was the real Luthor there.
Yeah, I think that is kind of odd that that they wouldn't. I mean, and you'd think Calculator would know who it is too, right? But
that's what I was thinking. But again, we're reading this after 15 years. I don't remember when the Calculator started going up against Oracle and became her counterpoint.
Yeah. This might have been before that, I guess. Yeah.
And then we get where Pariah is held captive. Again, great image there. Again, as we go through the story, we get Deadshot. So, okay, I'll let you leave. Gonna get out of here, Cheshire. I see you again. I'll put a bullet through your brain used to be. And again, what you're saying earlier, how it's too early to tell if she is pregnant. It confirms that here as she's leaving. Say goodbye, Thomas. If I did conceive, I'll tell her about you.
Like, she doesn't know if she conceived. She's already decided it's a girl. Like, it's like in the same breath. That's kind of funny. Like, and of course, then Parademon has the best line in the whole thing. He says, "I think I'm beginning to understand free will. It makes one an idiot, correct?" You know. So I'm like,
yeah.
I guess you're not wrong, Parademon. You're not wrong.
Very much a Drax type reply.
Yeah.
And then Cheshire comes ready. I'm coming out. I'm unarmed. I'm one of you. I am what? Deathstroke just shoots her. Sorry, Cheshire. We don't need any traitors in the society. And you think this might be the end of Cheshire here, but she does show up later. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Again, we cut back to Luther with Pariah. You see, word is joined about crisis is coming. You've been here on Earth. It makes me a bit of a nosy Parker. And there's other worlds, other possibilities. Here's where we actually find out there's another Luther. And Lex is saying, I already know that, you poor deluded fool. I'm him. And then we find out that the other Luther's hiding. And we find out that two things here. One, that this is an alternate Luther. And two, that our Luther is actually Mockingbird. So what do you think about this section of the story? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, this is the moment where you get the big reveal. It's kind of interesting that they had it's like a double reveal. I think we were supposed to be wondering about who Mockingbird really was, and then they have Luthor reveal he's Alexander Luthor, and then reveal that Mockingbird is Luthor, all in the same breath. So it's kind of like not only do you get whiplash, but it's like it's like a car crash happened to you from behind, and then a car crash happened to you from the side, and you got whiplash on both sides because you're like, you know. So they're giving you mega whiplash because this is Countdown to Infinite Crisis, people. We're whiplashing you know, like that kind of thing.
Right after the reveal, Alexander shoots Pariah, and again, I know Pariah's not a lot of people's favorite character. But seeing how he was one of the remnants of the Crisis, he holds a soft place in my heart.
I need more tear ducts from Pariah. It's not real Pariah unless he's like sobbing and weeping maniacally or whatever before he gets executed or whatever. They could have used some more tear dripping before that went down or whatever.
Yeah, and actually, that is a good point. Yeah, he did, for as much torture as he's undergoing himself, he's not crying. It's
not real Pariah to me unless he's weeping, you know? He's got to be weeping.
I think it was Reggie and Chris over the Cosmic Time Machine call him Crying Pariah. And then we get, as we talked about earlier, we get Talia and Scandal doing their fight to the death, if you will. Like, there's an elegance to this. Let the others scrabble in the dirt. Let us do it. Let's roll to who we are in honor of our fathers. And the two of them start fighting. And here they finally start to use Talia for what she's intended for. I mean, she's in a form-fitting outfit, but it's not just a T-shirt and a pair of jeans or sweatpants or whatever. Like Talia al Ghul here.
Yeah, this could be like some kind of League of Assassins training outfit or something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we get Giganta breaking through the building, trying to kill our guys. And then we get Virtuosa fighting Catman and Deadshot. And again, like I said earlier, Virtuosa shows up in the Blackest Night crossover, which I covered last year. Any thoughts on this fight?
I mean, you know, there's lots of different characters that they're facing off against. I think it's more believable that they're taking down all the characters just due to the non-teamwork among the members of this supervillain union. It's not so much that they're like the best fighters ever, but it's that the people fighting them are uncoordinated. That's why you get like Virtuoso like taking out Amos Fortune because they both dodge and Deadshot and Catman dodge, and then it's like that's what proves their undoing. You've got Solomon Grundy like kind of switching sides because Ragdoll kind of convinces him to switch sides. So like that's it's a turn the tide moment, but I think it's fairly believable even despite the vast odds that they're facing in this circumstance. Like they do their best to sell, like, even though these guys are the underdogs in the scenario, they do their best to sell the believability of them having won a second wind and possibly surviving all this. Like, even though they're kind of selling it as like a Butch and Sundance, Last Stand at the Alamo or Last Stand at the House of Secrets. It's like they're still getting in some good licks before that all goes down.
Oh, very much so. And then we got Luther, the real Luther, basically monologuing as thought balloons, talking about how, why he picked the team together, Catman for his knowledge of Batman's army of foes, Deadshot for his familiarity with the remaining Suicide Squad members, Parademon, who knows Darkseid's mechanics like no one whom he could, and so forth. And he goes through the entire team of why he picked those 6. They're lab rats and everything he wanted. Devastating ecological bombs as a leverage against Ra's al Ghul. Should he ever return? And I forget, again, in continuity-wise, if this was the point where Ra's al Ghul was assumed dead over the Batman titles. This is what I'm
the Death in the Maidens had come out before this, and that was that thing where they introduced Nissa Al Ghul, and that for a while that was Ra's al Ghul's quote-unquote official death.
Right.
Like he died in that, and so at this point, that's probably also one of the reasons why it's Talia in this group and not Ra's al Ghul, because she's supposedly one of the main surviving heirs. And then if you look later, it's like I think at some point they have Nissa and Talia both like kind of act as like lieutenants for the society.
Right. And then we get to the scene you were talking about where Ragdoll convinces Solomon Grundy to switch to their side, and then we get Vandal holding a knife to Luther's throat. I like that. He's like, "Hush, Luther. I've requested to make of you." Any thoughts on that section before we move on?
I mean, I guess if you're a fan of Solomon Grundy, maybe you're happy that he, switches sides and everything. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I think it's just a lot of these characters and chess pieces are just kind of being put in their final position on the board, pretty much. I think so. I don't have too much else other to say than just it seems like it makes sense, right? Like they're putting certain people against one another and kind of trying to seeing how do Ragdoll and Parademon get out of this jam with a bunch of guys at the door. It's like, well, they convince Solomon Grundy to switch sides and beat up the Bolt and Sting and King Shark, so it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then, Vandal Savage basically is trying to hold, Alexander Luthor hostage or whatever. And so that also, like, without probably knowing it, like, Scandal's getting some assistance from Daddy, like type thing, like like he's facilitating their victory to escape an Alamo or a Butch and Sundance Last Stand. Like that also plays a strong part in why they're able to make it out of this all in one piece. Right.
And then move on to, then we get Mr. Terrible fighting Catman. Again, this is Mr. Terrible's first appearance is in this series. I'm not sure offhand. Do you know, did they ever bring Mr. Terrible back over like in the JSA comic or anything?
You know what? I'm not really sure. Like that's what the late lamented Comic DB was awesome for. But since we don't have it, I guess I have to look at like the DC Wiki and see if there's anything.
You have to look and think to look beforehand, but
let's see.
Yeah, he's supposed to be Mr. Terrific's opposite.
Mr. Terrible, 14 appearances.
Oh, so he did show up elsewhere.
It looks like Salvation Run. It looks like he showed up in the Green Arrow Black Canary wedding. I imagine when a bunch of villains were in a giant shot. It was probably a reference in Cry for Justice too. It looks like it looks like he was in a couple things. You know, some of the Green Arrow stuff, some of the. It looks like Salvation Run and Secret Six he shows up in. So yeah,
but it sounds like he never actually had much to do with Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, to be honest, with the exception of Salvation Run and the Green Arrow Black Canary wedding, I mean, it looks like, you know, outside of Villains United, then it's all stuff that Gail Simone wrote as well. You know, like more appearances in Secret Six. Looks like there's an appearance in Wonder Woman, which she was writing at the time too. So yeah. So
I wonder if because it wasn't Jeff Johns writing just the JSA book at this time.
Yeah, that sounds right, I think.
Yes, I wonder if Jeff. I don't know if Jeff wasn't aware of it. He just didn't care for the character. Curious about that at this point, as I'm thinking about it. But then we get the second reveal that Scandal had a mole on their team, and we find out that this is where her love is actually Knockout.
Clobbers Talia in the back of the head.
Yes,
that's how they resolve that, and then she calls her beloved. So again, it comes back to the aristocracy, the beloved labeling of one's significant other.
And then we get Black Adam and Psycho outside. Black Adam just floating there, and Psycho kind of like hiding behind the door. Well, it's like the screaming the dying.
This seems like Black Adam just, I don't know, he had a chill pill or something. He ate a Snickers and just decided to hover and not do anything. Like you feel like if Black Adam really wanted to, he could take all these people apart by himself, but it seems like he has no interest in doing it. He's just kind of like, whatever.
I think it's more along, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's more along the lines he's smart enough to realize that if he gets in there, he'll be in people's way or people will be in his way. At this point, he's just going to hold back and see what happens. Because there's no sense him going in there and interfering with anything else.
I suppose if he unleashes full fury on the Six, he'd probably end up taking out like Humpty Dumpty and a bunch of other guys too, right?
Right. And probably not that he cares so much about them, but he is being a field leader and he's standing back. He's like a general. So he's standing back and he's there if he's needed. But yeah, at this point, he would just, more people to get in the way.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand that. And then we get Ragdoll fighting against his dad. And we also have Deathstroke and Deadshot having a gun off.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Outside.
That almost reminds me of that standoff that Floyd had at the Lincoln Monument, you know, with all the cops and everything. Like they're both firing at each other. It's kind of funny though how they come to that agreement. It's like, you want to come out of hiding? Because I'll come out of hiding. And they're like, fuck it. All right, let's come out of hiding. They both blow each other away. I feel like Floyd got the shorter end of the stick on that because Deathstroke can probably survive that given his healing factor and metabolism and everything, but Floyd's in a lot more danger in that scenario. I mean, not that he hasn't gotten shot up that badly before, but I think it's only due to the nature of his comic book character that usually comes out of those things in one piece. You know, he's got that. It's like he has Wolverine's healing factor without actually having it. You know? He's just got the cool factor. So
it's part of that cat god.
Yeah.
It's rubbed off on him. And then we get Parademon grabbing Ragdoll's dad. I've said this many times. No one touches the clown. Again, carrying on that love for Ragdoll and just beating the heck out of his dad.
Yeah. And I guess this is the Mexican standoff that is summarily diffused by Chekhov's 10 mother boxes.
So I was going to reference. Yeah, and that's what Black Adam's like, everyone go, get out of here now. As the building explodes, people come flying out the windows. And again, we get the final showdown, if you will, between Deadshot and Deathstroke. Again, we see Deathstroke being hit, but we don't see Deathstroke falling. Meanwhile, we get Floyd getting shot and falling down. Well, mutually assured destruction. Nice. Which makes you think that actually, I guess Deathstroke did get hit really hard too, because it's nice to know that. And this is where we get Vandal Savage threatening Luther, telling, your thugs are attacking my daughter. I can't allow that. Call it off or die. And we get Black Adam retreat. Are you mad? You can crush them. We've already defeated, we defeated them already. He's like, gather your wounded and dead and retreat. Oh, to just our show, bring in, bag her up as well. Please?
Please. Yeah. That's that. Yeah, you get that confirmation where Catman's kind of like, well, the good news is Deathstroke looks like crap as well. You know?
Yeah, never liked that guy. Cass Blake. Sorry about them. And this series ends, or this part of the story ends with Parademon dying it. Tell me a joke, clown.
He's like,
Dear he told you.
Demon, you've misread me. I don't know any joke. Wait, you're missing 3 limbs, and you're about to bleed to death in the mud without ever having a name or a home.
Oh, see, I told you were fun.
Yeah, that's I guess that's sad. Like, for whatever it's worth, like they took a character that is atypically, a generic foot soldier, somebody who's supposed to be, essentially mindless, obedient cannon fodder for Darkseid, and they made you kind of care about the character.
Yeah.
So you probably couldn't extend that any further than it was extended, but for the purposes of this miniseries, I think it worked really well.
Oh, yeah, very much so. And then when we find out from Luther contacting the group, telling them that, they're never implants. I'm a liar, not a child killer. Mockingbird says you failed, but you live. Goodbye, Scandal. And then the series ends, I talked about earlier, with Catman talking to Green Arrow, confronting him about what the Justice League did, warning him that the Society's going to be after him. And he just knocks Green Arrow out, or knocks him down. And he makes a very good point here. He's saying, good guys don't lobotomize people who are already in handcuffs. Everything that's happened is because of on your heads. People are going to die because you took the shortcut. And then Batman and Deathstroke go walking away, discussing the future of the team. The end. Like this is like, so what do we do now? We get the others, decide if we're going to be saints or sinners somehow. Oh, hell, let's just flip a coin. Nice little joke to go out with.
I mean, I guess to take some DC OCD terminology, I mean, this is definitely a launcher, right? Like, this launches the Secret Six's book, right? Like this
very much so.
Uses a big event to set up the cast and set up the characters, and then they go on to have a special, and then eventually they have their own Secret Six book. So in some ways, that's essentially what this is. But this is also, I guess part of a bigger crossover event and everything as well. But I mean, I do stand by, this was my favorite of the 4. I
agree.
They had the magic one, they had the Ranthanagar, and then what was I'm trying to remember now.
Was it the Amazons or
Day of Vengeance? And I don't know. Anyway, but that was this was the one I think I enjoyed the most of the 4-issue miniseries or 6-issue miniseries.
Oh, I agree. This was the best of them. Just pull back a little bit. My problem with DC and Marvel at this point in time, both companies, was that it seemed like in years past they had like a summer crossover. It would go on for a couple of months and then things turned to normal. At this point, both DC and Marvel, it seemed like crossover ran into crossover, ran into prepping for the next crossover, switched to the next crossover, and it just event fatigue, I guess. I was just getting tired of all the crossovers and never really having any downtime in the stories. But having said that, yeah, I did enjoy the Villains United book. I thought it was a great series out of all of them.
I think that was part of their, maybe sales model, to have a bunch of events. But it's kind of like in the old days, you'd read a comic and the last page of it would end on a cliffhanger, and that would entice you to seek out the next issue. But it seems like in this era, when everything's written for the trade, they would have a big giant event that was written for a trade that you could plug into 6 issues, but then leave maybe the end of it open for the next big event or the next launch series or the next thing. And that was part of their, it was to get you to read the miniseries and then and after you're done with reading Villains United, read the Villains United special. And after you're done reading the special, read Secret Six. And if you haven't been reading all the other miniseries, read all the other miniseries. And then once you're done reading the miniseries, then read Infinite Crisis.
Yeah.
And, that kind of thing. And then once you're done with Infinite Crisis, you're like, wow, I got through that whole thing. And you're like, guess what's next? Final Crisis, and I think for me, by Final Crisis, I probably suffered the same event fatigue you did. I think that during this, I was probably still kind of super excited leading into Infinite Crisis. I mean, I wasn't super happy with Identity Crisis, but I think these miniseries I was a little more into, and I tend to follow the big DC events, whether I'm super pleased with their happenings or not, just poke my head in and see what's going on. But I mean, I'd say Infinite Crisis in and of itself, I was interested in at the time and enjoyed, but I think I can appreciate what you're saying about, depending on whatever mindset you're in and what point you're at with certain comics. I mean, I certainly feel like almost every Marvel event, it was event fatigue for me during this era, and it took a little longer, maybe because I have a stronger love of DC Comics before that event fatigue hit me, but it hits everybody. So I think that's bound to happen with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm the same with you. I mean, I think it did take longer for DC to affect me than Marvel because, again, I've got a stronger love for DC. I know my middle child, he's 26. He's always, asked me about the Marvel stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm not quite as sure about that. I know about it, but I'm not as sure as I am about a lot of the DC stuff. Yeah. The DC stuff, I can talk all day about the origins of everybody. Or Marvel, I'm not quite sure about a lot of the characters. So, yeah, same way I said, I just get event fatigue. This was still a good crossover. I enjoyed this book. But Marvel, I was getting event fatigue sooner than I did at DC, just because I knew more about DC. I had a bigger love for DC. Thoughts about the way this ends, about them setting up for the new book?
I mean, it worked enough for me that at this point I was not suffering from event fatigue. I did check out the next specials. I did check out Infinite Crisis, and I did read pretty much the entire run of Secret Six. I mean, I thought that this was an enjoyable title. I think it worked. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily liked, especially once the New 52 started, I don't know that I really cared for everything that Gail Simone wrote. But, I mean, at this point in time, I would say that I really enjoyed her Wonder Woman run, and I really enjoyed Secret Six, and I really enjoyed Villains United. So as far as those books go, I'll go to bat for those, because I think they were entertaining, and it was fun. And I think, given the direction they were going in, I mean, this is something I've had to wrestle with too. Like, I don't mind the kind of idea that this was the last time maybe people were reading the DC universe as a big giant event and were very invested in it. Like, I can buy that. As far as the comics being fun, this was fun, I guess, but not. I mean, it's also very dark and has torture porn and all this other kind of stuff too. So it's like, I mean, there are fun moments, but it's still moving in that direction where by the time you get to Superboy Prime and Alexander Luthor crying like, oh, you 90s up my DC comics and they're all dark and grim and gritty, like you kind of hear them, do the fanboy whine and go, well, they're not wrong, they're not exactly like, they're not completely, wrong about that, like you can see what they're saying, and this is definitely, not something where everything's sort of, Silver Agey or classic or whatever. Like, this definitely delves into some dark subject material, but I still found it enjoyable, so in that sense, did I have fun reading it? Yes. Is it fun in the sense that, like, it's just a couple people tossing a beach ball? Like, no, you wouldn't show Villains United or Secret Six to, like, kids, right? Like, you wouldn't want to see, people getting tortured or Crime Doctor having a smoke like he's just been in a post-coital with someone after he's tortured someone. Like, you don't want to sit down and have that conversation and go, well, little Jimmy, like, this is what happens when someone loves torture very, very much, Like, what? Like,
I wouldn't take my 5-year-old and Grayson, sit him down. Okay, Grayson, well, this,
Yeah.
Take a look at this.
This is still pushing it in that mature direction, and for I guess guys like us who were probably in their mid-20s when this was coming out, we were probably all about it. But as far as getting younger kids to check it out, I don't think this was something that was necessarily written for them.
Oh yeah, no, I was in my mid-30s when this came out. Remember, I am an old man. But
I'm probably just lying about my age, so don't feel bad.
That's fine.
I'm trying to pretend I was in my mid-20s.
I'm not going to call you on it. I was going to call for myself. I wasn't calling you out on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're talking about the different other miniseries. I've read a digital version of this, and they do have a checklist. There was Day of Vengeance, which was the mystical one.
Right. Oh, the
Village
OMAC
United,
one, right? That was the one with Jason, right?
Ram Thangar War, and the OMAC Project.
Yeah.
For the different series. And they have links on here. In fact, I'm going to read this checklist off, which is probably going to match with what we're doing for JLMay. There was the Countdown Infinite Crisis, Day of Vengeance, Villains United, Ram Thangar War, OMAC Project, Superman 219, Action Comics 829, Adventures of Superman 642, Wonder Woman 219, and then it goes into Infinite Crisis, which we're not doing right now, and then the specials and all that, which will probably done at a later time by somebody. So
yeah, if I recall, those specials all came out after Infinite Crisis was done, so it was almost like, remember those miniseries we made you buy? Well, here's some specials, so buy those too.
Here's some more stuff for you to buy. Yeah. What do you have any thoughts about the Village United or the Infinite Crisis lead up, as it were?
No, I mean, this was something where, if you were really, really invested in it at the time, like you were probably, like we both were saying, like following all the titles and, all the comics and everything and getting caught up in reading DC more so as a universe rather than one single title. And, this is one of those nicely embellished miniseries that gives you a good snapshot of what was going on in DC Comics at the time, the direction they were headed in. And maybe at this point, they were still pulling off walking that tightrope with me where, they could be a little dark and they could be a little fun and still kind of move forward. But, in some cases, people can, not keep that balance and go too far in one direction or the other. And, I don't think they quite hit it at that point with me yet. But I think in some other cases, maybe they went too far in one direction or the other.
Yeah. But not just DC, but Marvel was doing the same thing. They're both companies were headed towards a darker universe, if you will.
Or just the fact that they wanted to, apply this faux level of realism to things, the murder mysteries, the way that people are fighting. It applied more of a Alan Moore Miracle Man treatment to Superboy Prime than it's not so much like, oh, I can punch somebody in the face and they go flying through a wall and everybody's fine. It's more like I punch somebody and then I'm still holding on to their severed arm as I punch the rest of them through a wall and they're a bloody pulp, and you're like, oh, well, you're like, I guess maybe that's really what would happen, but it is pretty gruesome, So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I have problems when they start, especially a lot of these newer film producers and whatnot. This is what would actually happen. This is more realistic. We're talking about people from other planets, people with rings from other planets to give them powers, Amazon goddesses. I want an internal consistency, but I don't necessarily want realism in my comics. That's why I read comics to escape, especially right now. Right now, again, I'm not sure how long this is going on, but we're in the middle of the COVID-19, aka coronavirus. We're all locked down. So right now, especially we need, some escape from realism, because right now realism is pretty rough right now.
Yeah.
You got people dying, and we're all, unless you're an essential employee, you're supposed to be staying in your home. So yeah, I read this for the escapism, not for the realism.
Yeah,
personally,
I think sometimes what happens is there's a conflation of being taken seriously, having the material being taken seriously, and realism, and it doesn't have to have like absolute realism for someone to take it seriously. You can still be invested and take it seriously. Like I can take the Adam West Batman TV show seriously when I'm a 5-year-old kid. It's not like Adam West has to rip somebody's arm off for me to take it seriously. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when I was 5, I took it all seriously. When I was 13, I laughed my ass off. And then, when you're in your 40s, you can appreciate both angles of it. And so that doesn't, it doesn't have to be quote unquote realistic for somebody to take it seriously. Like I think what the real longing is just for the medium to be taken seriously. I think, to me, something like Young Justice takes it seriously and applies a veneer of realism, but it's not so overdone that you feel like it's corrupted the characters or
the grim and gritty,
the mythos or whatever. So, I mean, I guess everybody, it's going to be subjective for everybody. Some people will like, more darker tone stories than others, and that's fine. And some of it, you can take the dark stuff seriously if you want to. But I think that's the key, though, is it's not so much like that people don't like dark stories or people don't like realism, but can I take that seriously? It's like, it can go completely in the opposite direction. Like to some people, I think Batmite and Mxyzptlk and Streaky the Super Cat, they can't take it seriously because it's, quote unquote goofy Silver Age stuff. But right. I could apply the same thing. I can't take the Batman Who Laughs seriously because it's so dark and so grim and so overblown and ridiculous. You're just kind of like, to me, I laugh at that because to me, it's just as ridiculous in the opposite extreme, So, anyway, but I mean, that's kind of a little, I don't know, sermon for another day, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed revisiting this with you. Like, this was a fun reread. Like, I liked reading Villains United, and I hope everybody checks out like all the other, tie-in podcasts that are part of this countdown to Infinite Crisis with JLMay. Like, I know, me and Mike on my show on Fanholes, we're going to talk about the Hush Returns and the Villains United tie-in over in Batman Gotham Knights. So there'll be a little more Villains United talk for me on my own podcast, and then I know a lot of other people are like, the list of titles that Aaron mentioned, a bunch of other people are covering all those titles. Mm-hmm. So if you're curious about it and don't know about them, it might be a good way to find out. And if you have fond memories like me and Aaron, you might want to check out all those podcasts and find some escape in these in these essential worker, wash your hands, wear masks times
and gloves. And like I say, if I can, I'm gonna have a list on the site with all the different shows and where they're covering, where to find them at. But yeah, definitely look for anything that talks about the hashtag JLMay. They'll be all over the podcasts during the month of May. I know the Fire and Water's handling some. I think it all comes back to Super. One of Michael Bailey's is handling something of it, I'm sure. So yeah, just keep your eye out for it. Come back to keep your eye out for the JLMay 2020. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking all those. Check out the Fire and Waters Firestorm look, because they're going to be looking at the Firestorm that crossed over into this book, and then more how Firestorm got to that point and what happened after our characters left. So definitely check them out. Check out Derek's show, because again, I haven't heard it yet, but knowing Derek, it's going to be great because he does a good show. So speaking of which, Derek, why don't you tell people if they want to hear more about you, where they can find you on the inner tubes?
Yeah, if you want to go listen to some podcasts, you can go to fanholespodcast.blogspot.com. And if you want to check out videos on the chronological history of film and TV adaptations from comics, you can go over to hocof.blogspot.com. That's short for History of Comics on Film.
Thank you very much. And again, for more on me, you can check out, I got everything under my banner of Headcast Network. All my shows are there. And then I have individual shows. The first Tuesday of the month is Head Speaks, where I talk about comics, movies, whatever I feel like talking about. I've just finished up the Armageddon 2001 crossover. And for the next month or two, I'm going to be looking at the miniseries that came after it, Armageddon Alien Agenda and Armageddon Inferno. And I'm not sure what I'm doing after that. I know I'm planning on covering the Power of the Atom series that came out, because, again, I'm a big Atom fan. So I'll be looking at that here in the near future. Thinking about maybe looking at maybe checking out the Voyagers TV series from the late 70s, early 80s. I found that online, so I may start covering that on Head Speaks. Anything that catches my interest. Usually it's something geeky related. The second Tuesday of the month, I have my G.I. Joe, or Royal American Headcast, where I look at the G.I. Joe comic book and the cartoon from the late 80s, early 90s. The third week, which will be this week of the month, I have Task Force X, where I look at the Suicide Squad and Checkmate books from the late 80s, early 90s. And the last week, the fourth week of the month, Tuesday of the month, I look at the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour, where I check out the Will Payton Starman comic. And I was doing the Mark Shaw Manhunter, but I finished that section. So I'm still up in there what I'm doing exactly with that show. Right now, I'm just covering the Will Payton Starman. Also, the fourth Tuesday of the month, I have Bravo Team, which is my extension to my G.I. Joe show. We look at whatever G.I. Joe related we want to look at. So be sure to check those out. Like I said earlier, check out Derek's show. He's a great podcaster. He's got some great shows. As I talked about earlier, I especially love the Thunderbolt show, just because I'm a huge Thunderbolts fan. But all of his shows are great shows. They're Transformers one. They got something I can't think of them all offhand right now. But yeah, check out Derek's network and let us know what you think. You can send us an email. You can go to the website, send us a message. I'm on Facebook. I have my G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast group. If you're in a G.I. Joe, join that. Over on Twitter, I have at Headcast Network and at G.I. Joe. I forget what it is now. But yeah, I got my Twitter for those two. I don't do a lot on Twitter, but I'm there occasionally. Check us out. Look for the rest of the JLMay crossover shows and have a good time. Derek, again, it was a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you.
I loved discussing this with you, and we'll have to do something again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
But until next time, squad mates, dismissed.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of Task Force X. I can also be found rambling on my main headcast of Head Speaks, where I rant and rave about movies, comics, geek stuff, and whatever is bugging me.
Mate, you just out-crazied the Joker.
Well, I tried, Boomer Butt. Anyways, my home on the internet is at headspeaks.com. HEADSPEAKS.com. Links to my blog, which contain follow-up information to this and every headcast, can be found there. Both Task Force X and Headspeaks are on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at headspeaks.com under Headcasts. Please feel free to email me any questions, comments, or concerns to taskforcex@headspeaks.com. And if you want to record a message, you can send it to me at taskforcex@headspeaks.com, and I'll play it on the air. I'm also on Facebook at Task Force X, and also on Google+, you can look for Task Force X under People and Pages. All titles and characters discussed are owned and copyrighted by DC Comics. I claim no ownership to the Suicide Squad, Checkmate, or Task Force X. I'm just a big fan wanting to spread the Task Force X love with everyone else. DC Comics can be found on the web at dccomics.com. Be sure to visit your local comic shop and look for Suicide Squad and Checkmate Comics. And while you're there, see what else they have that may interest you.
Mother.
Well, make sure you join us here next time for another fun-filled headcast from your friendly neighborhood Brotherhead. In the meantime, I'll see you in the funny pages.
Yippee!